Chapter 11. The different types of people, too. A new user has been registered, clang. Accompanied by dull metallic clanks, the pointed ends of the metal spikes separated from the ceiling almost immediately and then retracted into the floor below with even faster speed. As soon as those metal spikes were gone, the space in front became a wide-open passageway they could enter. What the hell just happened? What did you do? Ainz Sangmin was full of questions as he tried to follow after Sial and walk past. Slam. Huh. As soon as Sial walked past, the spikes shot right back up and slammed into the ceiling once more. Having become separated, Ainz Sangmin held onto the spike barrier and shouted out in alarm. Sial also fell into a state of confusion. But he spotted a red button mounted on the interior wall near the barrier. He quickly pressed it, and the metal barrier squeaked noisily before retracting again, just as he suspected they might. Damn, feels like I lost 10 years of my life just now. Ainz Sangmin hurriedly entered past the barrier and rubbed his chest to calm his pounding heart. Mr. Ainz Sangmin has arrived at the second-floor waiting area. Hearing that, Sial flinched slightly. He was caught off guard as he had forgotten about the automatic arrival announcements. When he took a glance at Ainz Sangmin, he was only spitting out sighs of relief. It seemed he had not noticed the announcement yet. Perhaps he missed it from all the shouting as well as the sound of the metal barrier opening and closing. Oh, so you finally arrived. HM. Kang Seok was waving his hand towards Sial, but when he spotted Ainz Sangmin, the ends of his sentence trailed off. What the? You two decided to work together? Ainz Sangmin raised his head after hearing Kang Seok's rather unhappy tone of voice. What about you then? Well, as you can see, we arrived here a long time ago. Kang Seok winked in a playful manner. Sial looked around and found Ji Hyungsik and Jiang Minwoo as well. The so-called waiting area reminded him of a regular high school corridor. With the exception of steel beams barricading the windows, everything looked the same. At the end of the passage to the left, there was another door, and to the right, a solid wall. This place is like a prison. That monster can't possibly enter here, right? It can't. Dunno why, but that thing can't seem to get past the metal barrier. No telling what will happen if there was no barrier, though. Kang Seok replied nonchalantly. Meanwhile, Ainz Sangmin was nodding his head along before quietly asking back. Back then, did you manage to open the door? Not open, but more like breaking it down. Thanks to a certain someone hightailing it out of there after throwing down rocks and flower pots all over the place. You're blaming me? Ainz Sangmin's voice was icy cold. Kang Seok's eyebrows rose up before he smirked softly. No way, I told you this before, didn't I? I don't really care what you do unless it involves us three. As long as you don't hinder us in any way, it's fine. Maybe I sounded a bit rude just now. Sorry about that. I'm always like this. Well, there's no reason for us invited to be at odds with each other, right? That's true. Great. As an apology, I'll let you guys in on interesting info. Even Sial had to shift his attention to Kang Seok's direction after hearing the word, info. Kang Seok's lips twitched when he realized that none other than this fancied gold mark was paying attention to him. His posture suddenly became a bit stiffer and more arrogant compared to before. Now look closely. This here is the passage we came through. Kang Seok pointed to his back and then pressed a button on the wall. The metal spikes retracted to the floor before shooting back up again. Ainz Sangmin muttered under his breath. So it's not on the outside, but inside. That's right, that's where it gets interesting. Kang Seok clapped his hands. To put it simply, this entrance became mine as soon as I entered first. Only I can open or close the barrier. What? I only figured it out after entering here. The first one to enter through the barrier is given the right to control it. One person per barrier, though. How does that even make sense? If you can't believe me, why don't you try it out? Kang Seok stepped aside, allowing Ainz Sangmin to quickly press the button on the wall. However, there was no reaction from the barrier. He pressed it a second time, then third, and then many more times afterwards, but the metal spikes didn't budge an inch. Still half in doubt, Sial's eyes drifted towards the map on the phone, and he belatedly realized something. Out of the 6 blue icons blinking around the second-floor waiting area, 4 had now turned red. Only one was red when he was in the club room. Was there a need to make 3 entrances yours? Oh, how did you figure that out already? Sial's question caused Kang Siok to become visibly surprised. What's the matter? Don't you think it'll get more interesting later on? Oh, right, how about you make that other one yours? Kang Siok stared at Ainz Sangmin and pointed towards another barrier on the opposite side. Well, passages on this side all belong to us now, so you should take one from that side over there. All you have to do is to grab the spike. Simple, right? It seemed that Ainz Sangmin was quietly debating on it. He sneaked a glance at Sial, then slowly shook his head. I'm gonna pass. I'm fine with simply being here and all. He and Sial then found a nice little spot for themselves and settled down. Oh well, do whatever you want. Kang Siok and his 2 lackeys sat down too, but soon they had to get back up again as Ainz Sangmin pulled out a new pack of cigarettes. The trio reached out and pleaded for a smoke, so Ainz Sangmin handed one to each while saying it was compensation for providing the info. Then, just as Sial was digging through his own pockets to find a smoke too, Ainz Sangmin presented a whole bundle to him. How about smoking these? I saw before that you were running out, so I packed in a few at the convenience store. Ainz Sangmin whispered quietly and gave Sial a thumbs up. Soon enough, the corridor was filled with the blue smoke rising from the 5 men. Now that most of the tension had ebbed away, Sial's sight slowly blurred and felt his eyelids had become much heavier than before. It wasn't like he had to endure an all-nighter, yet he felt quite drowsy. This was probably due to the fatigue accumulated from overusing his ability. Should I sleep for a bit? They had over 3 hours left until the time limit. It seemed that sleep was the best means to cool down his overworked eyes and brain. He knew now wasn't the best time to close his eyes and drift away into the slumberland, but he had regained his power somehow. It'd be deathly stupid if he lost it again through overuse. Sial entrusted himself to the encroaching embrace of sleep, and that was why he couldn't hear it. I can't tell whether he's got balls of steel or doesn't really care about the tutorial. Seeing Sial's head droop ever so lower in sleep, a wry smile broke out on Kang Siok's face. He flicked the cigarette butt away and groaned out. Just when is this supposed to end? It'd be so much better if it ended soon. We still have over 3 hours left. Fuck this. Why are we waiting for 4 hours in a mission like this? Yi Hyung-sik grumbled as he rechecked the mission details on his phone. Kang Siok silently agreed with that opinion and massaged his head with his interlocked hands. I'm so bored. I really hope someone comes through the path on this side. What if no one else shows up? No way. The rest of the invited hasn't shown up yet. What, you mean that Yi Siala? She's already dead, isn't she? Not that dumb bitch. Ha, people who act like heroes always end up getting killed first. Kang Siok darkly muttered out those words, which made Jiang Minwoo lick his lips in regret. What a waste, though. Yep, that I agree. But then again, don't you worry, we still have one more left. Who? You know, the other one. What was her name? Yun Seora? Ah, that arrogant girl. When Yi Hyung-sik chimed in, the 3 of them giggled out in sync. Their laughter sounded leery and ominous. Whatever. Maybe I should catch some Ztikes myself. Kang Siok's yawn was large enough to nearly rip open his jaws. Just as he was about to lie down, something happened. Out of the blue, noises containing both loud shouts and hurried footsteps could be heard from the distance. Kang Siok blinked his eyes a couple of times before shooting right back up. Excluding the sleeping Sial, everyone present scanned the barriers. Which one? Which one is it? Jiang Minwoo pointed towards the middle barrier on the opposite side. Since Sial had taken over the left barrier there, that particular one had no owner as of yet. Kang Siok seemed to be incredibly disappointed by this development as he looked at Ainz Sangmin. It's still not too late, though. I told you, I'm fine. Kang Siok spat out a sigh and stood there with his hands across his chest. His attitude was of a man who had just found something interesting to spectate on. The noise got closer very soon. There were 3 people running up as if they were being chased by something, a middle-aged man, a woman, and a young girl. The middle-aged man was wearing a worn-out business suit and a pair of glasses and was leading the woman holding the young girl's hand. His necktie danced uncontrollably as he ran up in a huff. It was none other than the man who asked for Kang Seok's help earlier on. Just a little bit further, just a bit. Huh. He rounded the corner in a hurry, but as soon as he saw the metal spikes on top of the stairs, his steps came to an abrupt halt. He must not have considered the possibility of the path being blocked. Despair began to dye his expression pale. Soon, though, he discovered Kang Seok passed the spike barrier. The woman and the girl following him ran into the middle-aged man's back and awkwardly bounced back. And finally, sharp and familiar-looking hooks pounced on them. All these happened at roughly the same breath. "Help us." The bespectacled man ran up to the barrier without hesitation and shouted out, "Let us in." A new user has been registered. With a loud clang, the metal barrier slid open. The wide-open entrance caused the expression of stupor to appear on the man's face. And when he turned around to look behind him while still carrying that expression, "Help!" he couldn't help but flinch. Both his wife and daughter were already in the grips of the chasing monster. "Help us! Help, dear! Dad, save us! Dad!" They pleaded, yet the man's steps were halting and retreating. When he met the gaze of the monster and its large, bloodshot eye, dear, heejin. He couldn't move. He was completely frozen up. Splat, splat, step by step, the sticky footsteps got nearer. The middle-aged man's expression distorted into an unsightly mess of tears, snot, and uncertainty. He cast his glance over to Kang Seok, asking for help again. However, the young man bluntly spat out, "Quickly make up your mind, will you?" "Huh, are you going to come in or not?" "Make up your damn mind. You planning on killing us too?" Was it because of Kang Seok's shouting or the threatening atmosphere emanating from his back? The middle-aged man finally made his decision and moved. Slam, Dad. "Dear, no, don't leave us." The middle-aged man chose to enter the waiting area. "Dad, don't abandon us. Dear." A pair of jet-black hands grabbed the legs of the screaming mother and daughter. The man squeezed his eyes shut after seeing his family being lifted up into the air, hanging upside down. Rip. The sickening noise akin to a sheet of silk being ripped up in one go pierced his ears. The terrified, pained screams rang out loudly from the stairwell. The man collapsed on the floor and hurriedly covered his ears. He violently shook around on the dusty and unclean floor. He never lifted his head up again, not until all the screams finally died down. It was only obvious that Seol would wake up from his light sleep due to all the unfolding chaos. By the time he fully regained his consciousness, the screams couldn't be heard anymore. He hastily got up and took a look past the metal barrier, only to see the corpses of the mother and the daughter both ripped in half. What shocked Seol the most, though, was their expressions. Their expressions that hadn't eased even after they died. Their expressions, twisted and corrupted by the combination of pain and terror, despair and fury. It was plain to see their ardent desire to live right up until their last breaths. I don't know. I didn't do that. I'm not responsible." The middle-aged man remained on the floor, huddled and not moving, except that his entire body trembled and shook all the time. There was no helping it. There was nothing I could do. No one said anything, yet he continuously spat out incoherent babble while sobbing pathetically on the floor. PFT. Out of the blue, a short burst of laughter leaked out from someone's lips. The middle-aged man's trembling came to a sudden halt, hearing that. Meanwhile, Kang Seok hurriedly covered his mouth up. Pew ha 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 ha. Even though he looked like he was trying to keep it in the end, he lowered his head and his shoulders shook from the unrestrained laughter. The middle-aged man's hands clenched tightly into fists, nails digging in under the skin. The wise old saying said that if you weren't planning to give something to a beggar, you shouldn't at least kick his begging bowl. Recalling that old saying, a deep frown formed on Seol's face. He's actually laughing in a situation like this. It was then. They could all hear another metallic clang. Yun Seora walked in from the last remaining door that had no assigned owner. As if she too had searched through the school premise, she was holding a handful of A4 papers. Just like back when she was in the assembly hall, she swept her gaze around the waiting area once. found a quiet spot for herself and settled down there before concentrating on the paper. And with this, the confirmed number of survivors was 7. It was not even half of the starting 36. Within the quiet silence, time continued to flow. Every now and then they could hear some kind of chaos unfolding downstairs, but those died down eventually. Sial came to a conclusion. There shouldn't be any more survivors left. However, his thought was proven wrong about 30 minutes before the time limit. We are almost there, everyone. We'll arrive there soon, so go up as quietly as possible. Contrary to his expectations, more survivors showed up, and it wasn't just 1 or 2, but a group of 5. Sial even recognized 2 people. One was Shin Sang-ah, the woman who raised her voice at Kang Seok back in the assembly hall, and the other one was Yi Sungjin, the younger brother of Yi Seala. He didn't know what they went through, but they had successfully arrived at the destination. Unfortunately, the path they had taken was occupied by Kang Seok and his cronies. "Oh wow, look who it is!" Kang Seok blinked his eyes and theatrically exclaimed out in surprise. "So you managed to make it alive. The crybaby has done it. Huh?" Shin Sang-ah had been climbing the steps cautiously, but finding the barrier, she fell into a state of confusion. Seeing the people beyond the metal spikes, she blankly muttered out a question. What is going on? Why is the path blocked?" "Oh, that," Kang Seok smirked like a snake. It was as if the moment he'd been waiting for all his life had finally arrived. Seeing that oily smile, Shin Sang-ah couldn't help but frown deeply. What do you mean, what? I'm the owner of this barrier." "The owner of this barrier?" Kang Seok burst out in laughter and began to gleefully explain things. It was as if he had transformed into a well-paid private tutor. He explained everything one by one, bit by bit, and in full gory detail. Of course, his audience wouldn't be able to concentrate on this useless yammering. Shin Sang-ah became even more anxious as she kept on looking back behind her. The tone of her voice became ever so urgent as well. "I get it now, so you can open this barrier, right? Oh ho, you're smarter than you look, or maybe my explanation was just that good. I get it, so open up already." "Really now, how did you manage to get here? I mean, you're just a contracted. I'm surprised you managed to evade the monster." Kang Seok showed no indication that he heard her plea and seemed to be genuinely enjoying this situation. I don't know. We nearly got discovered, but this boy used something he got from the random box. We all escaped somehow during the confusion, okay?" Shin Sang-ah pointed at Yi Sungjin. The boy's complexion was still dark and aimless. It seemed that the death of his older sister had hit him real hard. "Oh well, I guess he's an invited too, so at least it wasn't all luck." "Okay, now, open the barrier so that we can enter." Kang Seok slowly opened his mouth. "I don't wanna." A truly disgusting smile crept up on his face. Chapter 12. Top record, are you crazy? Open the barrier right now. "Why should I? This here is my doorway. I decide what to do with it." "Why are you acting like this? Do you have any idea just what we had to go through to get here?" "Agu tilde. So you had to go through so much, huh? But what should I do?" "According to a certain someone, I'm an egocentric, petty son of a bitch." Shin Sang-ah gritted her teeth while listening to Kang Seok's sarcastic remarks. She could more or less tell why this asshole was acting this way. Clearly, he was still holding a grudge against her for that verbal spat back in the assembly hall. She held back her anger and spoke to him in a level voice. "I apologize. I apologize for calling you names when we were in the assembly hall, so please open this barrier. It's not just me here, too. These people haven't done anything to you. You shouldn't treat people's lives as a joke." "Ooh, now that's not what I expected to hear from you. Are you being honest?" "Of course." "Well, I guess I don't have much choice here then. Fine, prove it to me. Prove it." "The other 4 with you, I'll let them in. You stand back." Shin Sang-ah's jaw dropped to the floor. Her expression screamed what kind of an asshole would act like this. Unfortunately for her, Kang Seok's expression showed how relaxed he was. You, what are you going to do?" "That monster might show up soon, you know, tilde." Shin Sang-ah didn't expect Kang Seok to behave like this, and her face reddened up considerably as a result. However, with the exception of Yi Sungjin, the other 3 were looking at her with pleading eyes. Their stares were laden with a certain pressure. She gritted her teeth and took 3-4 steps back. "Oh wow, a martyr, aren't you?" Kang Seok exclaimed out loud as he pressed the release button. As soon as the barrier was lowered, the three rushed inside. Yi Sungjin stared at Shin Sang-ah for a bit before belatedly trudging past the barrier as well. Only afterwards did the trio begin calling out to her, crying out her name out in a helpless manner. The barrier closed, shut regardless. However, Yi Sungjin suddenly reached out towards the button to press it. He'd been watching Kang Seok's hand quite intently just now. Of course, nothing happened. Seeing this, Kang Seok broke out in laughter. "Don't waste your time. Didn't I tell you? Only I can open the barrier." Yi Sungjin suddenly pounced on Kang Seok. However, it couldn't even be called a fight from the get-go. The teen boy got easily subdued by Yi Hyung-sik and Jeong Minwoo, and he could only glare at Kang Seok in rage. "Bastard, do you have a death wish? What, did that bitch tell you she'll become your new sister or something? Open the barrier? That's up to me, and I kept my end of the deal. Good job. You can go look for another path or something now. Good luck." Shin Sang-ah couldn't bring herself to leave just like that. She scanned the inside of the waiting room, hoping for something or someone to save her, but that turned out to be a waste of time. The people inside were either spectating or looking unconcerned. In the end, she turned around helplessly. "Should I let you in?" Hearing this, Shin Sang-ah's steps came to a halt. She abruptly spun her head and shot Kang Seok a murderous look. "Do you actually enjoy toying with people?" "Yup. When would I ever get to have fun like this if it's not today?" Kang Seok nonchalantly replied and gestured her to come closer. "Stop being difficult and come over here. You saw me letting people in just now, right? I'm the kind of guy who keeps his promises." Hearing his words of keeping promises, Shin Sang-ah was gripped by an intense bout of doubt and uncertainty. But thinking about the hardships she suffered to get here, she couldn't imagine looking for another path. Plus, even if there was another path, she had to search for it alone. She figured it'd be better to get bitten by a rabid dog once. She made up her mind and turned around to face him. "What do you want me to do? I'm not asking for much. Just apologize for the things you said back in the assembly hall." "But I already did." No, it was clear to anyone watching that you weren't sincere. Besides, I'm not the type to believe in apologies coming out of a person's mouth." "Then what do you want me to do?" Shin Sang-ah raised her voice when Kang Seok remained sarcastic to the end. He rubbed his chin as his eyes scanned her lecherously. Shin Sang-ah did not possess the same sort of fresh appeal as Yi Seok, but her skin was pale smooth and her rack was commendably voluptuous. A sinister smirk formed on Kang Seok's lips. "First, take them off." "What?" Shin Sang-ah couldn't help but question her own hearing. "Take your clothes off." "Ah, I'm a nice guy, so I'll let you keep your panties." "Cool." Hearing Kang Seok's benevolent tone of voice, Shin Sang-ah even forgot to close her wide-open mouth. "I think I'll feel a little better if you perform a little nude dance show. How about you twerk for me?" You insane son of a bitch. Don't want to do it. Fine. Fuck off then." Kang Seok shrugged his shoulders. Shin Sang-ah bit her lower lip until one could clearly see the teeth mark on her flesh. She inwardly mumbled, "This crazy son of a bitch." Then her body shook from the belated sense of humiliation. Tears welled up on her eyes, ready to fall at any moment. Unfortunately for her, that moment when her group ran into the monster played heavily in her mind. What if she went downstairs now and ended up encountering the monster again? "What are you waiting for? Like I said, you can fuck off if you don't want to do it." "I'll do it." "Then hurry the hell up. I'll give you 10 seconds to take your pants off, starting now." When Kang Seok really started counting down, Shin Sang-ah had no choice but to hurriedly undo her buttons. She hesitated when it came to pulling her pants down, but after hearing the rapid countdown, she still forced her jeans down all the while shaking like a leaf in the wind. Kang Seok made a cat-calling whistle as Shin Sang-ah's bare thighs were revealed to the cold air. "Hiya, Tilda, you've got a great figure. Your underwear's pretty cute, too." Shin Sang-ah squeezed her eyes shut, hoping this would lessen the humiliation she felt even by a tiny amount. "What are you doing? Keep stripping, girl. I'm gonna count down again, huh? Hoo, it's the monster." "The monster." Kang Seok suddenly cried out in alarm and pointed at the staircase behind her while hurriedly taking a step back. Shin Sang-ah's eyes shot open in shock. She screamed in terror and tumbled forward in an ungainly fashion. "Mommy!" Out of reflex, she looked behind her, only to find nothing there. Rather than the monster, the staircase was as empty as it could possibly get. Sure enough, she could hear several loud and detestable chortles coming from beyond the barrier. "Did you hear that? You heard that, right? She said, 'Mommy, Mommy, ha 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 ha.'" "Ha, that was fucking adorable, kayak mommy." When Hyungsik imitated Shin Sang-ah's cries, Kang Seok and Jeong Minwoo burst into laughter. Lost for words, all Shin Sang-ah could do was to let tears accumulate around the edges of her eyes. Sorry, I was just teasing you a bit. You looked really cute just now." "Too much?" "Well, Tilda now. It's time to remove your top, right?" "This is too much." In the end, she couldn't hold it any longer and broke down in tears. "You're crying?" "Hey now, you shouldn't cry, you know, Tilda. You gotta take your clothes off and dance for me before." Kang Seok clapped his hands boisterously and laughed before suddenly shutting his mouth. Unknowingly, a dark shadow was looming over him. Seol wasn't angry from the beginning. He initially planned to ignore the matter. He was neither a saint nor a man of justice. Like most people, he was disinclined to interfere in other people's business. Even if he saw something he considered unjust, he would only frown and think, "Isn't that going too far?" Unless it was someone he knew. Seol would never personally get up and do something for a total stranger. However, when his eyes landed on Yi Sungjin, or more specifically when he heard him whisper "help us" as he was pinned down to the ground, he had a change of heart. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but the scene happened to remind him of the time Yi Seol asked for help in the assembly hall. Seol's emotions trembled. The small tremor soon spread out like some sort of a mutated butterfly effect, and it violently quaked, eventually transforming into rage. That was why he stood up. Just like the day he had that dream. Just like the experience he had in the assembly hall. Innate ability future vision has been activated, just like the way his emotions were leading him to. "What? You also want to join in on the fun?" "That's enough. Open the barrier, please." Kang Seok dazedly stared up at Seol. He hadn't realized it until now, but Seol was taller than him. "I'll open it when I feel like it." "Open the barrier." Kang Seok shut his mouth. Judging from his expression, it seemed he just couldn't understand. "Did you inhale something weird? Who the hell are you to order me around? Open it." Kang Seok's complexion hardened. For some strange reason, he found it difficult to meet Seol's gaze. Even his balls seemed to shrink a bit. He didn't want to admit it out loud, but Kang Seok was scared. It was as if he was staring at a choice of whether he should cross a line he should never even consider crossing in the first place. His instincts forced him to press the button. However, just before that, Kang Seok's defiant streak reared its head. He couldn't help but think, why should I listen to this son of a bitch? Because he had a gold mark. What a fucking joke. Kang Seok arrogantly leaned his head back. "I don't want to." The corners of his lips slowly wiggled and twitched. "Listen here, I'm trying to stay friendly with all the invited. Don't be an asshat and go away." Seol slowly raised his arm up, which prompted Yi Hyungsik and Jeong Minwoo to move as well. However, Kang Seok confidently stopped them by raising his own hand. "What? You're gonna hit me?" "Fine, go ahead. If almighty gold Marknim wants to hit me, this lowly silver mark should just obediently get hit, no. But remember this. The more you try to show off, the lesser I'll be inclined to open the..." Cuck! Thwack! Seol's fist slammed into Kang Seok's nose. Yi Hyungsik and Jeong Minwoo were taken by surprise, but even they had to cry out in pain while grasping their noses. The speed at which Seol's fist flew was so scarily fast, they couldn't even see it. "Why, you son of a... Kua-ack." Kang Seok reflexively threw a fist of his own, but Seol simply snatched it off the air and twisted it hard. The force was so severe that Kang Seok's knees gave out in one go. Seol then proceeded to drag his arm and forcibly pressed the button. The barrier slid open. "Come in." Shin Sang-ah carried a dazed expression as she stumbled into the waiting area, not even thinking of putting her pants back on. Only then did Seol release Kang Seok's arm. "Miss Shin Sang-ah has arrived on the second-floor waiting area." The first tutorial mission, Escape from the Assembly Hall, has concluded. Number of remaining survivors, 12. A new message from the guide has arrived. The second mission of the tutorial, Breaking Through Traps, has begun. They all heard the new announcement, and at the same time, the sturdy locked gate at the end of the corridor automatically undid itself. It seemed that, regardless of the remaining time, the next mission would be triggered right away once all the survivors arrived at the waiting area. Kuuk. Kang Seok rolled on the floor in a fit of pain. Then, he used the wall to support himself and got up. Still holding his twisted arm, he glared at Seol with murderous intent. You! Kang Seok was about to shout out something, but then simply spun on his heels to leave. We'll see what happens later, you fucking son of a bitch. He picked up his own bag and hastily escaped through the now-open passage. Seeing him retreat, both Yi Hyung-sik and Jeong Minwoo slinked away from sight. Next, Yun Seora, who had been watching Seol silently, turned to leave. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thick teardrops fell from Shin Sang-ah's eyes as she began to wail. Next to her, Yi Sung-jin's head also dropped low. However, the recipient of their gratitude, Seol, wasn't feeling all that good. He knew his actions were not entirely from his own will. His rage failing to cool down drove him further into an even greater frenzy. He felt like destroying, rampaging, and making an utter mess of everything. Sender, the guide. 1. Enter the classroom 3-1 on the 4th floor of the main building via Annex's 3rd floor before time runs out. Remaining time, 01:57:56 hours and a time limit type mission. After confirming the details of the next mission, Seol's eyes burned with a dangerous light. Hey, hold up. Seol unhesitatingly walked forward, and Hyun Sangmin hurriedly chased after him with 2 bags. Area 1. The second mission is now commencing. A robotic voice made an announcement as images flickered on a massive semi-transparent screen. Several men and women were sitting in front of this screen, watching the proceedings unfold. It's only the second mission, but... Damn it, I'm gonna lose my mind at this rate. 24 people died in the first stage. How does that even make sense? Why is every one of them such goddamn trash this time? When a bald giant of a man spat out in anger, a woman wearing a purple robe next to him grumbled unhappily as well. However, when another woman wearing a business suit sitting in front swept her icy gaze over them, the two shut their mouths up rather quickly. Really now. At this rate, the name Area 1 will become a huge joke. With the March's overall assessment looking this bad, how are we supposed to endure until September? The bald giant couldn't resist and added a couple more sentences, but fearing that the business suit woman would glare at him again, he hurriedly turned his attention to her. Anyone know what's going on in other areas? Anyone hear anything? Me. A young man with curly hair raised his hand. I overheard something while I was outside. As far as clear speed is concerned, I hear Area 2 and Area 7 are neck and neck for the first place. 2 and 7. I get the Europeans, but what's up with those Chinese bastards? What's the point in even asking? You already know what dirty tricks they are using over there. They're invited all conspire together, and as soon as the tutorial starts, they take the contracted hostage. I'm sure they are passing the missions while sacrificing the contracted whenever necessary. The balding giant spat out a groan. Fine. What about 2? I heard they are the very example of perfection itself. A French girl named Odilette Delphine has taken over the show, with just pure skills, too. Well, her killing the Phantom in front of everyone with the starting bonus she got during the first mission proved to be the decisive factor. What's her mark? Silver. Also, as soon as the second mission began, she succeeded in opening up the path to the computer classroom. She's bulldozing everything in her way. I think she won't even need an hour to get to the end. Maybe 50 minutes tops. Wow, what is she, a monster? Europe really found a good seedling this time. What about the rest? Area 5 is doing decent, but it's so-so. They've had a 30-minute head start for the second mission compared us, so there's that. The giant groaned out again. God damn it. At this rate, we aren't going to have a single one remaining at the end of the tutorial. No way, don't forget we have a gold mark. It looks like he even has the diary of the unknown student. Surely he'll be able to clear it with no problems. You think so? I mean, he chased that phantom away with nothing more than his glare, right? The curly-haired youth spoke with the aim of consoling the giant man, but the bald giant's face continued to show how disappointed he was as his eyes remained locked on the screen. Sial, as shown on the screen, was entering the annex via the pedestrian overpass connecting the two buildings. Hey, doesn't that guy look a bit pissed off right now? What the hell? What's the matter with him all of a sudden? The curly-haired youth raised a shrill voice of surprise. As the mission name suggested, the location reserved for the breaking through traps wasn't supposed to be tackled willy-nilly. Yet Sial didn't even stop to take a look at his phone and simply strolled right in. Can we really trust a guy like that? The bald giant tapped the woman wearing the business suit. Hey, say something, Kim Hannah. Shut your damn mouth for once, okay? Kim Hannah spat out in a voice full of undisguised irritation. The giant man immediately realized that if he tried to provoke her any further, he'd be on the painful receiving end of the hysteria of an unmarried spinster. The giant licked his lips as if he found the whole thing unsatisfactory, then got up from his seat. He figured he would rather go out for a smoke break than sit here and get pissed off at what was happening on screen. The bald big guy wasted around 15 minutes outside smoking. But when he was about to enter the room again, clang, clang, he spat out a disappointed groan after hearing the noisy metallic clangs coming from inside. He thought that a brainless idiot was repeatedly stepping into traps, activating them inadvertently. While shaking his head, he opened the door to enter. Clang. Then he tilted his head, wondering if his eyes were playing tricks on him. In truth, the second mission wasn't at all difficult for someone like this bald man. A highly trained Earthling would be able to clear it in around 30 minutes even if he was taking his time. However, the ones doing the mission right now weren't the trained Earthlings, but a bunch of weak, powerless civilians. These people hadn't even experienced a proper war. The goal of the mission was simple enough to stop the activation of various traps by fulfilling a set of conditions beforehand. Or leave it to Lady Luck to decide. That should have been the case. However, he's evading, blocking, and deflecting. Not only did Sial not stop after performing those actions, he even deliberately triggered the traps that hadn't been activated yet. He was progressing forward while destroying everything. It was like looking at an Earthling, not a powerless civilian. A look of disbelief was etched on the bald man's face as he hurriedly got closer to the screen. At the same time, 3 sharp metal spears were shooting out towards Sial from the ceiling and from both the right and left sides. Clang, clang. It was unknown where Sial had acquired a steel beam, but regardless, he spun it like a cartwheel. Soon, the audience was treated to the cacophony of metallic clangs as well as a beam of cold silvery light flickering on the screen. The result was all there to see. The moment spears from the right and left were sent flying, the spear from the ceiling brushed past Sial and pierced the ground. The woman wearing the purple robe stood up reflexively, her fists clenched in anticipation. Is he dead? No, did it miss? No, he dodged. The bald man closely watched the proceedings unfold, then confidently declared out loud, I'm sure of it. He slapped away the spears coming from both of his sides, and he was about to do the same to the one coming from the ceiling, but, dunno. It's like his body couldn't keep up with what he wanted to do. In any case, I definitely saw him tilt his head out of the way. Oi, Kim Hannah, just what's up with that guy? The bald guy seemed to be shocked by his own words and belatedly shouted at Kim Hannah. Kim Hannah remained quiet for a long while before suddenly opening her mouth. For the second mission, what's the record for the fastest clear time? The record? You mean Sung Si-hyun Nim's legendary 29 minutes and 38 seconds? The bald giant nodded his head as if he was proud of something. Meanwhile, Kim Hannah's head dropped low and eventually she began rubbing her face as if she was feeling quite fatigued all of a sudden. This is crazy. What's crazy? Area 1 second mission has been cleared. The expressions of everyone present became dumbfounded by the sudden announcement. 16 minutes, 24 seconds. This was precisely the moment when history was rewritten. Chapter 13. A dangerous treasure hunt. 1. The label above the classroom door read 3-1. Seol quietly opened the door. He looked to be in a pathetic overall condition while propping himself up with the metal spear serving as a makeshift cane. His boiling hot rage had cooled down by now. However, the sense of emptiness filling him up right after his ability, future vision, ended was incredibly hard to endure. It was as if he was overcome with a bout of lethargy. The new gathering area was a regular classroom that could be found on pretty much any school out there. Seol chose a chair, and as soon as he sat down, he plopped down on the desk with a thud. His eyeballs hurt so much he thought they might pop out at any moment now. He was also beset with intense vertigo as well. And as he stayed there, barely moving, the door opened again and the classroom gradually became somewhat crowded. The total number of casualties during the second mission: 0. It was an obvious result, really. Seol ended up destroying every single trap there, so it was not a surprise that everyone got to clear it without a fuss. The survivors took an unsure glance at Seol, who was still collapsed on the desk. Well, they had to bear witness to some unbelievable scenes that were simply beyond their ability to describe, so understandably, they couldn't stop staring at him. They already had some thoughts as to how special Seol could be, but still, their imagination had been easily exceeded. "Are you all right?" After flawlessly performing his duty as the trustworthy bag shuttle, Hyun Sangmin asked with a lot of worry in his voice. Seol simply waved his hand to imply, "Don't worry about me." Shin Sang-ah entered the classroom in hesitating, faltering steps, found a chair on a quiet corner for herself, and settled down there while hiding her face. Yun Seora arrived a bit later after that. Finally, Kang Seok and his lackeys showed up, signaling that all 12 survivors had gathered in the classroom. Well, I'm truly shocked. When that familiar voice suddenly popped out of nowhere, Seol's eyes shot right open. "I couldn't have imagined you'd pass the second mission that quickly. Thanks to you all, my prestige has gone up a level in the meantime." Behind the teacher's podium stood the guide from the assembly hall, still wearing that butler outfit of his. Everyone stared at Han as if he was a phantom or some such. "I congratulate you on successfully arriving on the 4th floor. I have to ask, did you enjoy the proceedings of the first and second periods?" His leisurely and bright tone of voice roused anger in the hearts of almost everyone present. But they knew there was nothing they could do, so they simply had to swallow it back. Still, the breathing of the bespectacled middle-aged man quickened noticeably. "I'm here to give you all great news. There is only one mission remaining in the tutorial." "There's another one?" "Yes. But there is genuinely no reason to fret. The reason being," the ends of the guide's eyes arched upwards, "the remaining mission, it can actually become quite easy and enjoyable for everyone." "Easy and enjoyable?" "Yes, as long as you stick to the rules, all of you." When the guide emphasized the words "all of you," a dangerous smile crept up on his face. "Shall I start with the explanations then?" The mission this time is a little more complicated. That is why I'm here. Besides, those announcements are so robotic and impersonal, no, ahaha." The guide seemed to be in a really good mood, for some reason. "Overall, this mission's goal is similar to the ones you had to go through until now. You are tasked with reaching the 6th floor via the 5th floor. However, there are a few more additional rules to consider this time." The guide picked up a chalk and drew a small circle on the blackboard. "This is a coin. Have you heard of a treasure hunt?" I am beginning to truly appreciate the greatness of the teachers teaching those unresponsive students. The guide's shoulders slumped forward rather theatrically, then he played with his monocle. "Fine. I shall finish the explanation and disappear from your sights as soon as possible. On the 4th and the 5th floor, there are many of these hidden coins waiting to be found. You all are required to find and amass as many coins as possible before nightfall." He then began writing on the blackboard again. 1. The usages for the coins. Entry fee lucky draws. There is a place on the 6th floor where the gate leading to the paradise is scheduled to open. The mere mention of entry to paradise caused a small commotion to rise up. Unfortunately, there are no free lunches in the world. You will have to pay the appropriate entry fee, If you plan to enter the gate, you will need 100 coins as the usage fee. 100? You need that many. Actually, that's not a lot. Hen shook his head. The total number of hidden coins is 3,000. With a little bit of legwork, finding 100 should be a cinch. Hen spoke up to here before letting out a gasp of ah. Now that I think about it, there are coins hidden in this classroom too. Suddenly, the sound of a chair being slid across the floor could be heard. A woman stood up and took a quick stride towards the podium, then began rummaging through it. It was none other than Ainz Audioverse. Soon, she straightened her back, and sure enough, 4 yellowish coins rested on her palm. Hen showed some surprise after seeing a stack of papers clutched in Ainz Audioverse's hand. I see that you have searched through the staff room on the 1st floor. Those documents were useless until past the 3rd floor, but from here onwards, they should prove to be quite helpful. Still carrying an indifferent expression on her face, Ainz Audioverse returned to her seat. Did she find a map that shows where the coins are if that was the case? Then Ainz Audioverse held an overwhelming advantage on this mission. Sial couldn't help but feel a bit envious, and continued on in the meantime. On the 5th floor library, you will find an item draw machine. Item draw, the expressions of the people present became confused after hearing an unexpected announcement. Those of you who manage to amass lots of coins, you must use this machine. You will definitely be able to acquire many things that will aid you in your journey. Like what exactly? You'll find out once you get there, but things such as food, consumable goods, etc., etc. For some reason, Hen quietly stared at the person who asked the question, causing Shin Sang-ah to lower her gaze in a hurry and cross her legs in a defensive manner. Well, if your luck is good, then you might even receive a protective item of some kind. Also, weapons and spell balls as well. Weapons, spell balls, Sial narrowed his eyes. Or when you pour in a lot of coins in one go, you might find unique and special items. Items such as... Han deliberately stretched his sentence, trying to create a sense of anticipation. A legendary elixir that can bring the dead back to life. The devastated and downtrodden middle-aged man's gaze shot towards the front of the classroom. Even the dazed Yi Sungjin visibly flinched. Is that true? Nuna can be revived. Really? Han nodded his head at the two's hurried shouts. Of course. However, you need to meet lots of requirements first. It's definitely not going to be easy. You shouldn't take the act of reviving a dead person so lightly. Stop what you're doing this instant. Han's icy voice reverberated throughout the classroom. The middle-aged man with the worn-out business suit had shot out from his seat and was heading towards the exit, but he had to stop and hesitate. You won't find any coins even if you leave now. The treasure hunt will only commence precisely 30 minutes after I finish my explanations. Even though Han's words were simple to understand, the middle-aged man showed no signs of sitting down. He just staggered towards the door and stopped right in front of it. Han clicked his tongue in disapproval, before spotting an oddity at the corners of his eyes. It was Sial, who had raised his hand to ask a question. Please speak. What is the reason for weapons, defensive items, and spell balls being available from the item draw machine? Conversely, is there a reason why they shouldn't be available? Why would we need those items in a mission that's supposedly easy and enjoyable? Phew. I like these kinds of questions. The hardened expression of the guide softened considerably. Such questions mean that the listener isn't just taking things at face value and is constantly evaluating the situation. For now, here is the answer to your question. Han winked once, pulled out his smartphone and tapped on the screen. A message from the guide has arrived. I'm not lying to you. If all of you can cooperate together, this mission will become very easy to clear. And you will even get to enjoy it, too. I guarantee this. Han dropped the chalk and raised a finger. And also, if I were to provide you with one more helpful hint. Keep an eye out for the hour of the deceased, please. The deceased carry an unending hatred for all living things, after all. The hour of the deceased. Sial hurriedly pulled out his phone to check the message. Sender, the guide one. Rules of the treasure hunt the classroom 3-1 will be set as your safe zone from here onwards. The period between midnight till tomorrow midday will be designated as the hour of the deceased. The phantom, Geekwi and the deceased are unable to enter the safe zone. 2. Requirements for gaining access to the 6th floor access will be granted with the 6th floor key that can be drawn on the item draw machine using 199 coins, or by paying 499 coins at the door. 3. Requirements to activate the gate. The gate will appear in the middle of the 6th floor, 30 minutes after the access has been granted. When the access to the 6th floor has been granted, the metal barrier on the 2nd floor will be removed immediately. When Sial raised his head, Han was already long gone. The treasure hunt will begin in 30 minutes. Sial began gritting his teeth, of course. I knew it. Hey, this isn't what you said, is it? Hyun Sangmin roared out in frustration. What? When we gain access to the 6th floor, the metal barriers on the 2nd floor will be removed. Isn't that the same thing as saying that goddamn monster will show up here sooner or later? Sial was deeply worried about that as well. The 30-minute gap during the 6th floor door opening and the gate ready to activate held all the potential to be absolutely fatal for everyone here. Besides, they had to worry about these so-called deceased as well. I mean, we can open the door to the 6th floor and then come back here to wait out the 30 minutes, no. What the fuck? What would you do if that damn Geekwi monster is waiting for you in front of this safe zone? What then? When someone voiced his opinion, Hyun Sangmin promptly shut that person down. Then he spat out a long groan. Wow, nothing is easy at all. Not a damn thing. What should we do now? Well, it doesn't have to be so bad. Sial spoke up. We go out and find as many coins as we can until midnight. Then we wait until midday tomorrow. Then we draw as many weapons and whatever we can from the item draw machine before opening the 6th floor. Sial was about to finish his sentence with "we might stand a chance then," but he couldn't and instead simply clicked his tongue. Yun Seora and the middle-aged man were no longer in the classroom. It was the same story for Kang Seok and his crew, too. Only 7 people remained in the classroom. Oh well, wanna eat something? We still have some time left to kill and all. Sial wordlessly nodded his head. He was actually starving after going on a rampage earlier on anyways. He felt like he needed to eat something in order to regain his strength. When Sial poured out various food items from his bag, the eyes of everyone present, besides Hyun Sangmin, grew extra wide in shock. Come, let's eat together. Even you, Mr. Yi Sungjin. You won't find any coins even if you leave now. It'll be more beneficial for you in the long run to fill up before you begin. Thank you. Hyun Sangmin didn't seem to be too happy about Sial being so considerate, but still didn't try to stop him. After all, the food provided wasn't his to begin with, and then there was plenty to go around as well. Also, some of the food, like gimbap, would go bad in a few days' time, so might as well eat them. And so, even Yi Sungjin joined in, which left behind only one person. What about you, Miss Shin Sang-ah? Shin Sang-ah remained sitting in the chair. Sial was about to ask why she wasn't joining them, but then saw her desperately trying to hide her exposed lower half. He realized that her pants were still missing. I was too busy trying to enter. I forgot. Wouldn't it be okay to go and fetch it now? I'm scared. Sial took off his jacket and handed it over to her. Shin Sang-ah expressed her deep gratitude, and after wrapping the jacket around her lower waist, she was finally able to stand again. Afterwards, a silent and uneasy meal commenced. You seem to have a good appetite. Shin Sang-ah spoke in a surprised voice while unwrapping the packet of cold sandwich. She saw Sial swallow hot bars in one go, and then proceed to devour several onagiris as well. I wonder, since when did I have this much appetite? Sial was also slightly confused by this and tilted his head. Even though these were instant foods from a convenience store, they tasted really good. The funny thing was, when he was still addicted to gambling, nothing tasted nice to his palate. Well, the wise old they once said that hunger was king. Sial simply wolfed down the sandwich Shin Sang-ah personally took out from the packet, without asking another question. It was around here that a young man who seemed to be around the age of a university student asked Sial. We should start collecting those coins soon, yes? Yes, you need to collect a minimum of 100 before you can pass. The young man seemed to be waiting for Sial's reply as he hurriedly continued on. That guide said it, didn't he, that we could revive a dead person? Yes, he did. Actually, I came here with a friend of mine, but he... so like the thing is. The ends of his sentence blurred as he kept stealing glances at Sial's direction. Me too. I came here with an oppa I know well, but he tried to defend me and... A girl suddenly jumped into the middle of the conversation, but she too couldn't get to finish her sentence and could only grow tearful in expression. She even stared at Sial with pleading eyes. Obviously, Sial stopped eating then. He was feeling rather flabbergasted. He was already having a headache while wondering how should he go about clearing this mission, yet what were these people trying to say here? More importantly, what do they want from me now? Hey you, let's just have a meal in peace. In peace, I say. Ainz Sangmin shouted out loudly in an unhappy voice. What do you all think you're doing? Seriously now. Ainz Sangmin furrowed his brows rather grandly as if to display how displeased he was. Can't you see how tired he is right now? Just let him enjoy his food in peace already. You aren't even supposed to provoke a dog during meals, let alone an actual human. No, I'm just saying. Just saying this and that. But who cares? You want to revive someone, then do it yourself, all right. Seriously, all you have to do is to find enough coins anyway. What do you expect from him, then? His abrasive and rude words led the two's neck skins to visibly redden from heat. They didn't say anything else as a retort, but the young man simply snorted out as if he was dumbfounded or some such. The girl, too, was visibly displeased as well. Meanwhile, Ainz Sangmin powerfully squeezed a packet of instant bread and popped it open, hard. If it weren't for Sial's signaling with his eyes to take it easy, he might have started physically fighting the two. The awkward meal eventually came to an end. Sial left the classroom and stepped into the corridor. It was almost time to begin the treasure hunt, but also, Ainz Sangmin called him out there to have a chat as well. I'm telling you this right now, I can't stand people like those two and I won't go around with them. Ainz Sangmin's voice was rather heated at the moment. What useless fucking idiots. You found them a path and hell, you even fed them food. Yet they want even more. Don't they have any shame? He glared towards the direction of the classroom, unable to dissipate his simmering anger. But he suddenly lowered his voice. You should be careful too. From where I'm sitting, it looks like those two think you're an easy mark or something. I apologize if you think I overstepped my boundary, but things like this, you gotta cut off the head right from the beginning. Know what I'm saying? Sial slowly nodded his head and then shook it slightly. Even if Ainz Sangmin didn't step forward just now, Sial knew he wasn't going to say something nice to those two as well. It would be the same story whether the future vision was activated or not. A person's true nature is only revealed when he's pushed right to the edge, am I right? Now that their bellies are full, and they are feeling all nice and comfy, they are acting like a bunch of spoiled assholes. I don't like guys like Kang Seok, but that bastard's opinions aren't half wrong. You continue being nice to them, they'll eventually end up thinking that it's their birthright or something. Well, in any case, don't ever trust those two stinking bitches, okay? The treasure hunt will now commence. Remaining time until midnight 05, 29:59 people began leaving the classroom one by one, leading Ainz Sangmin to do a couple of fake coughs to clear his throat. Well, I'm sure you'll do what's best for you. Anyways, I'm going. See you back here around midnight, okay? He lightly tapped Sial on his shoulder, affixed the bag on his back, and disappeared through the stairwell. Almost instantly, the whole floor seemed to come alive with lots of activity. Seeing a person run past him in a hurry, Sial decided to concentrate on finding coins himself. He figured that, by amassing as many coins as possible, a new path forward would open up for himself. The diary of an unknown student has been updated. Sial stood there wondering where should he go first before he pulled out his phone when the message entered his ears. Sender. Unknown hash 4th floor, the corridor in front of the classroom 3-1, excerpt from the diary of an unknown student. 4th floor, classroom 3-1, inside the teacher's podium X4. 4th floor, classroom 3-2, inside the 4th desk on the 2nd row X1. 4th floor, classroom 3-3. Inside the first locker, X2, 4th floor, classroom 3 to 4, on the window sills facing the corridor X3. Oh. Chapter 14. A dangerous treasure hunt too, seeing that well-organized list, Sial's head automatically moved up and down in a nod. He had no idea whose child this unknown student could have been, but well, this was very well-organized indeed. Most likely an honor student, top of the class and all that. Now that he had leeway to spare, Sial no longer hurried and simply walked on the corridor in a relaxed gait. He found 3-4 people busily running around inside classroom 3 to 2. He then spotted Shin Sang-ah jumping up and down in joy while crying out, "Yay!" inside 3 to 3. She then froze up like a deer in headlight as soon as she saw him staring at her through the corridor window. Sial procured 3 coins by the window sill of classroom 3 to 4 and entered the 3 to 5, only to run into someone he didn't expect to find so soon. It was Ainz Audioverse. She was in the middle of searching every nook and cranny. She only took a cursory glance when she heard the classroom door slide open, before turning her attention back to the treasure hunt. She kept on opening and digging through every single desk in the classroom. Seeing that, Sial couldn't help but tilt his head in confusion. Why is she searching every desk like that? Doesn't she already have a map? Sial's thoughts were only half correct. They both possessed maps, but the level of information contained within was quite different. For instance, the info shown on the diary of the unknown students was as concise and precise as one could get, telling him to go to classroom 3 to 5, second desk on the 3rd row, X1, or to 6th desk on the 5th row, X4. However, Ainz Audioverse's map only displayed vague hints such as classroom 3 to 4, inside a desk. Unless it was something like a teacher's podium, which there would only ever be one in a classroom. She'd have to roll up her sleeve and do some hard labor when the coins were hidden inside one of the many lockers or desks there. Ainz Audioverse finally found a single coin and became rather pleased with the result. She then dropped it inside her bag and turned around. Then, she spotted Sial casually finding 4 coins that were hidden inside a desk near the door. Her eyes blinked several times in shock. All right, let's see. Next, Sial headed to the classroom 3 to 6. By the time Ainz Audioverse recovered from her shock and belatedly followed him, Sial had already swept the place clean. Too easy. Way too easy. Sial whistled and happily went about his task. He was deeply worried before, yet now that a path had opened up for him all of a sudden, he couldn't help but feel very happy and motivated here. And so he ransacked the classroom 3 to 7 in the same manner. But, as he was exiting the room, his steps came to an abrupt halt. Ainz Audioverse was standing in front of the doorway. Her gaze alternated between the wide-open door of a locker and her map, before shifting her gaze upwards to Sial. Although her face still more or less remained impassive as before, her eyes kept blinking non-stop. Inexplicably, Sial felt a wee bit scared all of a sudden. For some unknown reason, he even felt like he did something he shouldn't have and had become a criminal in the process. Maybe I should leave 3 to 8 alone. He carefully sidestepped past Ainz Audioverse and headed off to 3 to 9. His steps were quick and urgent, as the feeling of apologetic guilt pricked him. However, while walking past 3 to 8, he couldn't understand why Ainz Audioverse chose to follow him instead of stopping by the classroom. Sial was now beset with a sense of awkwardness and began to run. Sure enough, he could hear the hurried footsteps following him from behind. Now genuinely flustered, Sial quickly entered classroom 3 to 9. Classroom 3 to 9, on top of the teacher's podium. X3 classroom 3 to 9, above the TV cabinet. X1 while Sial was pocketing the coins on the podium. Ainz Audioverse charged forward as fast as an infantryman attacking his enemy and pounced on the TV cabinet. By the time Sial shifted his gaze towards her direction, her arm was already shooting up towards the top of the cabinet. Unfortunately for her, her hand couldn't quite reach up there. The TV cabinet itself was rather huge, and it easily exceeded 2 meters in height. In other words, it was tall enough to nearly touch the ceiling. It was obvious that Ainz Audioverse and her height of around the middle of 160 cm would never reach up there. Even when she tried to stand on one foot, even when she stood on tiptoes, both of her heels leaving the ground, even when she jumped up and down on her not-so-new shoes. Her hand only swung around the empty air, so close and yet so far. She kept doing that for a while. She could have just used a desk or a chair to stand higher, but... Sial found her gasping and sweating while struggling like that, very funny and adorable, and short laughter broke out from his lips. Foo! Ahahaha! Sial, her movements came to a standstill. Sial hurriedly covered his mouth up, but it was too late by then. Yun Siora's head robotically turned around to face him, her expression dazed and lost. Sial felt incredibly apologetic once more. He had no excuses to offer, even though his personality might be on the wrong side of being blunt. He still knew he had made a big mistake just now. Indeed, he knew that very well, yet Sial had to summon every ounce of willpower to suppress the laughter trying to explode out of his mouth. Should he say that the dam had been well and truly burst open? Her reactions of now were utterly, comically different to her normally indifferent expressions, and he found it incredibly funny. Didn't one of the old sayings go along the lines of, laughter would get progressively harder to block the more you try to? What should I do now? Sial felt like he'd explode in a fit of laughter if he tried to say something now. He gulped in lots of air, and while suppressing his laughter in the same way one would hold his breath, walked to the TV cabinet. He retrieved the coin and took a quick glance at her. What now? Why is she being so resentful like that? Sial carefully presented the recovered coin to her. She briefly looked at it resting on his palm before staring at him without saying anything. However, she seemed to be implying, "Are you pitying me right now?" A strange but definitely awkward silence flowed between them. Sial was this close to breaking down. Though she needed to either take the damn coin or not, she needed to make up her mind right now and leave the classroom, so he'd get to finally break down and laugh his head off. Trying to suppress this laughter was killing him inside. Take it. In the end, Sial couldn't endure it and opened his mouth with great difficulty. However, ah-ha-ha-ha, the laughter exploded out of his mouth, even though he inwardly went, oh crap. No, wait. I mean no. Ga-ha-ha-ha. Yun Siora's complexion, visible through his desperately waving hands, was incomparably pale. Now that he finally let the unstoppable laughter out of his system, the unavoidable reality hit him. Yun Siora seemed rather nonplussed. Although her gaze was slightly lowered, she maintained that impassive expression of hers. She's feeling okay, I guess, just as Sial was feeling relieved inwardly. Sniff. He could hear a soft sniffle through her nose. Although the amount was small, her upturned eyes were wet with tears. It seemed that her pride had been wounded. Her breathing became imperceptibly faster, and her facial muscles began twitching as well. Now that Sial took a closer look, she was biting her lips ever so slightly too. She eventually wiped her eyes and turned on her heels to leave. Sial continued to watch the silently departing back of Yun Siora, the coin still resting on top of his palm. On the 5th floor, just after the treasure hunt commenced, Kang Seok directed his followers into the bathroom and locked the door behind him. What's the matter? Is it urgent? We gotta find those coins quickly, you know. Hearing Yi Hyungsik's words, Kang Seok's lips formed a wry smile. What are you so worried about? We can start looking for them later, or just take it from those who have found some already. You want to steal them? Obviously. After hearing Kang Seok's declaration, Yi Hyungsik rubbed his nose. Perhaps still feeling the brunt of the pain experienced not too long ago, a low groan leaked out of his lips. Jeong Minwoo's complexion wasn't so good either. That bastard wouldn't sit still, though. That's right. I think it'll be better for us to collect them the normal way. Kang Seok raised his voice in anger after hearing the two's pathetic replies. Fuck me, you get hit only once and are now shivering like some scared cats. Why don't you chop off your balls right now or something? Idiots. Hey. What's the matter with you two? Are you going to take that shit lying down? Really now? But. I can't let this shit go. I gotta pay him back with interest. 10 times, no, 100 times more. Isn't that how human nature works? You have a plan or something? Jeong Minwoo asked, still sounding not entirely convinced. Kang Seok licked his lips in a rather ominous manner, rechecked that the door was locked, and then beckoned his lackeys to come closer. Come on, closer. Yi Hyung-sik and Jeong Minwoo came closer and paid attention. We will also go and collect those coins. We will do our best right until midnight. Got it? Keep listening, because this is where it will get interesting. Kang Seok lowered his voice to a whisper and explained his plan to the two. What did you say? Yi Hyung-sik's mouth opened up wide in surprise. What the? But if that happens, keep your mouth shut. Kang Seok growled menacingly, causing Yi Hyung-sik to promptly slam his lips shut. Is there a reason for us to go this far? Yeah, there's a fucking reason. That asshole came out swinging first, so it's only correct that we swing back even harder. But will it even work? It's going to. Look. Seeing Jeong Minwoo tilt his head this way and that, Kang Seok smirked deeply. What do you think this is, Tilda? Kang Seok then pulled out 2 pieces of paper from his pocket and waved them in front of his lackeys' faces. What's that? He's not the only one who received a starting bonus. Know what I mean? If we succeed, then we'll be the ones controlling this place in no time. Kang Seok declared triumphantly before slightly cocking his eyebrow. So, while having his hands locked and fidgeting around, Jeong Minwoo shrugged his shoulders. Seeing this, Yi Hyung-sik sighed out as if he couldn't help it either. Good. No need to worry about a thing, boys. We only need, 5-10 minutes tops? Now you get it, don't you? The 2 lackeys nodded their heads. Kang Seok began gritting his teeth. All we have to do is to defeat that fucker. When we grind that motherfucker to nothing, then we win. Remaining time until midnight. 00:36. 12. The end of the treasure hunt was getting nearer. The total number of hidden coins might have been 3,000, but that didn't mean all of them could be found at once. After the coins were discovered and taken away in an area, they respawned after a short amount of time elapsed. Seol got to find that out after seeing the diary of the unknown student get updated numerous times. Thanks to that, Seol had to roam the 4th and 5th floor several times, but eventually he got to stretch his limbs in the end. He felt fulfilled. He worked tirelessly and got to find almost 1,600 coins in the end, specifically 1,552 of them. There were 12 survivors participating in the hunt, so this was the same as him monopolizing over half of the available coins. I should probably go there now. After lightly tapping his bag, Seol headed upstairs. If he wanted to, he could keep finding the coins, but he was mindful of the time needed to use the item draw machine. Now that cooperating with others was out of the question, no one knew what could happen later on, so, rather than anxiously wait till it was midnight, he knew it was smart to make some kind of preparations. As if others were still too busy with the treasure hunt, there was no one besides himself inside the 5th floor library. The so-called draw machine kind of resembled one of those gacha machines one could find commonly placed in front of stationery shops, the only difference being this one was somewhat larger. The list of items available to draw: 1 coin to 9 coins, food, daily necessities, a note from the guide, medical supplies. 2 10 coins to 49 coins, relief supplies, souvenirs, various maps, a letter from the maid. 3 50 coins to 99 coins, weapons, defensive items, survival points, a brand new cutting-edge smartphone. 4 100 coins, spell balls, random coin box, contains up to 1,499 coins. 5 199 coins, 6th floor access key, 100% odds. 6 300 coins. Special Seol fell into deep thought. He needed 100 coins as the usage fee, so he had to deduct that amount. And since he didn't know what would happen later, he had to reserve the amount to purchase the access key as well. That left 1,253 coins to play around with. So, should he go for the special 4 times, or only try that one out a couple of times and get some spell balls instead? He didn't think for too long. First of all, he found the actions of Kang Seok and his crew rather suspicious. They ran into each other a few times during the hunt, yet they didn't try anything, seemingly only focusing on the treasure hunt and nothing else. However, they couldn't fool his eyes. I saw their colors. Originally, only Kang Seok emitted the yellowish color, but now, Both Yi Hyung-sik and Jiang Minwoo emitted the same yellow hue as well. He had to pay them close attention, in other words. Since their colors were the same, it could only mean that they were cooking up something bad. So, Seol naturally chose the latter option. He needed a weapon of some kind. Indeed, he needed an all-conquering ace up his sleeve that could help him out, even if he found himself stuck in the worst possible situation imaginable. Seol picked up the first coin, but he soon began swearing out inwardly. Why? Because he realized that manually inserting each coin one at a time was unexpectedly a lot of work. That's why. Goddammit. A somewhat lengthy time later, Seol packed the drawn items into his bag while massaging his aching fingers. The end result was actually quite satisfactory. Random coin box. Contains 81 extra coin spell ball. Spider web x1 random coin box. Contains 136 extra coin spell ball. Poison fog x1 spell ball. Ignite x1 random coin box. Contains 292 extra coin spell ball. Hydrochloric acid x1 special. Mirror of understanding. X1 He was especially happy with the results of 2 of the random boxes. Although it couldn't be called a massive success, he'd happily call that a mid-level success or some such. So he still had 1,061 coins remaining. Even if he went for special twice, he'd have 162 coins left over. Seol decided to stop around there. This should be more than enough, but also, time was running out, as well. As soon as the clock struck midnight, the so-called hour of the deceased would begin. So he should quietly return to the safe zone and wait until midday tomorrow. Seol's steps as he walked down the staircase was confident yet easy-going. What he didn't expect to find was that the classroom 3-1 was still deserted. It was the so-called safe zone, and there was less than 10 minutes before midnight, yet not even an ant could be seen. Seol stood there wondering until he heard the classroom's sliding door noisily open up behind him. You were here already." Seol turned around while inwardly thinking, of course, people should start showing up soon. The first one to enter was Ainz Sangmin, but he didn't look so good. A short while afterwards, Shin Sang-ah trudged inside as well. "What happened to you? I got nearly fuck all." "And me too. I mean, what the hell? It's like a crazy asshole swept away everything or something. Why is it this hard to find a single damn coin?" "You're so right. You know, I shouldn't have been so fired up after finding a few in the beginning. I could only find 70 coins in the end." Shin Sang-ah complained while massaging her feet. "You're worse than me, though. I did meet the 100 coin requirement at least." Ainz Sangmin's voice was also rather weak as well. Seol thought about it for a long while before deciding to give Shin Sang-ah 30 coins. Since he was already treating the remaining 162 as a reserve, he didn't even hesitate. Shin Sang-ah's eyes grew larger. "Hey, are you giving me these?" The look in her eyes was already well past gratitude and into the territory of worshipping a savior. "Wah, what the heck? 30 coins in one go? Please, take it. What, you also need some? Holy shit. How many did you manage to find?" Seol scratched his cheek sheepishly. "Enough to survive, I guess?" Ainz Sangmin's expression showed how dumbfounded he was before he suddenly exploded in a fit of laughter as he fell back. "Geez, so it was you." "I knew it. It just didn't make any sense unless someone already swooped in and picked everything clean. I seriously searched everywhere, dude." "A few, so the guilty party wasn't Yun Seora, eh?" "Why, what's up with Yun Seora?" I thought you've realized it by now, too. I was thinking that she knew where all the coins were and were busy hogging them all for herself or something." "I'm pretty sure it's not only me who thinks this way." That made sense. Ainz Sangmin added that he was now feeling bad after inwardly slagging her off for being a selfish bitch, which led to Seol feeling even greater sense of guilt. Knowing that he had inconvenienced everyone else, albeit it wasn't his intention to begin with. The hour of the deceased will commence from this point on. Finally, midnight arrived. As if the 3 of them made a promise beforehand, they closed their mouths shut at the same time. However, there were only 3 of them in the base, even now. Where's everyone? It's obvious, isn't it? Ainz Sangmin answered Seol's query while fishing out a cigarette. Even I was wondering whether I should return or not. In any case, I found 100 coins, so I decided to come back here, but others probably aren't thinking the same way. You think so? Yeah. They are probably like, a bit more, and then. They should be going crazy trying to find enough for the usage fee alone. And those trying to revive the dead, well, they don't even care anymore, it seems. So that's how it was. Although not as much as Sial, Yun Siora must have found a considerable number of coins for herself. What with the two of them sweeping away the majority of the available coins, there shouldn't be a lot remaining right about now. So it was as obvious as daylight that the competition would only get worse. Sial never expected things to devolve in this manner while he was busy collecting the coins. No, he didn't even bother to think about it at all. Oh well. If they are worried about their lives, I'm sure they'll eventually show up sooner or later. Hyun Sangmin murmured while sucking on his cigarette. What? Are you going to do? Shin Sang-ah asked while cautiously studying Sial's reaction. Sial felt contradicting emotions in his mind. He didn't care much about Kang Seok and his crew, but when he thought about Yun Siora and Yi Sungjin, he couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. I guess I should find the ones that I can. Yes, let me help you. Shin Sang-ah agreed immediately while her expressions showed how relieved she was. Seeing this, Sial became ever so slightly curious about her status window, and so just as he was about to take a peek into it, oh, goddammit. Hyun Sangmin slowly stood up from his seat. I don't like this at all, but yeah, I will lend a helping hand too. A promise is a promise, right? He spoke as if letting out a long groan and playfully pointed towards the door with his chin. Shall we go, leader? It happened then, Chapter 15. A dangerous treasure hunt 3, the 5th floor, at the end of a corridor lined with various classrooms, there was a laboratory. Not one ray of light could escape from the resolutely shut front door to the lab. Only the soft, rustling noises managed to intermittently leak out. A certain teen boy was currently rummaging through the lab's interior. He cleared away the chemistry sets and other glass apparatuses on top of the tables and pulled out all the books stored on the bookshelves. He was desperately searching for something. But, as time continued to tick by, the signs of anxiety slowly but surely crept into every little action he performed. Kick. Suddenly, there was a noise. However, the teen boy, Yi Sungjin, couldn't hear it due to the very fact that he was turning a table upside down at that same moment. He intensely glared at and looked through all the fallen and shattered laboratory apparatuses, and he moved on, not even slowing down briefly to express his disappointment. He continued to mutter, coins, I need to find more coins. He deliberately didn't switch on the light. He thought that it'd be easier to spot those clear yellow coins if the surroundings were darker. Tack. Tack. Again, there were foreign noises. It was soft and low enough to miss if one didn't pay attention. Yi Sungjin didn't pay attention. His mind was full of thoughts of reviving his dead sister, Yi Siala. The guide definitely said he would be able to bring his sister back to life if he got to amass lots of coins. Nuna. The mental shock he received after witnessing the dead Yi Siala being pulled out was truly enormous. Although below her waist remained relatively fine, her upper torso was ripped to shreds and not much of her remained. Just thinking about his undeservedly murdered sister, his body seemingly shook off any hints of growing fatigue and regained its vigor once more. It was said that the heavens would help those who helped themselves. He soon discovered an object gleaming softly inside a sink. Yi Sungjin's eyes shot wide open and he reflexively reached out. Unfortunately, he was in too much of a hurry. Ah. The coin that he worked so hard to find slipped out of his grasp and fell to the floor. It rolled and slid under the desk. The boy instantly jumped down and reached out with all his might, finally catching the wayward coin before it disappeared for good. Only then did he catch his breath again. Outside the lab's windows, the world had become pitch dark. Only the cold, uncaring moonlight seeped through the glass and faintly illuminated the interior. Phew. It was only one coin, but this was clear evidence that his concerted effort was not in vain. Time was already well past midnight, yet he still had a long road ahead. He didn't have the time to worry about the deceased and stuff. No, he had to find more coins. Lots more. Yi Sungjin clenched the lone coin in his hand tightly and gritted his teeth. Tack, tack. Yi Sungjin was about to push himself up from the floor but froze up instantly when he heard the noise. The noise seemed to brush by his senses, perhaps tauntingly calling out to him. His arms became tense and taut. His hands pressing down on the floor felt the deathly chill and goosebumps spread all over him. In an instant, 50,000 different thoughts raced past his brain. The 16-and-a-bit-year-old teen boy very slowly raised his head. And when his sights were raised from the ash-colored floor just a tad, he forgot to breathe. Just below the desk, he could see a pair of small feet, and above them, long, shapely legs. Legs that trembled and stuttered as if they might falter at any moment. Yi Sungjin was about to scream, but his eyes opened wider first before his mouth could leak out a sound. Although he only saw the lower half, he found it rather familiar somehow, and when he recognized the blue skirt with dried blood on it, the boy's eyes opened even wider. Nuna. The stuttering legs stopped, and they slowly spun around as if they were looking for someone. www. The voice sounded awful, and Yi Sungjin was immediately repulsed by it, but to him that wasn't important. He stood right up and... Nuna, is it you, Nuna? I'm here, N. And he couldn't finish what he wanted to say. The figure with its back to him and slowly turning around was quite similar to Yi Siala. Such as those long, flowing hair and N, Nuna? Something was wrong, very wrong. He couldn't put his finger on it. Yet this figure resembled so much like his older sister. Yi Sungjin's instincts were overcome with this hard-to-explain terror. SSS suung jjjjjn a hhh hu. Plop. Suddenly, her neck's skin wobbled and stretched like an empty sack. Only then did the boy understand the reason for the sense of disharmony. The ratio of her body parts didn't quite match up. Nuna? He wanted to ask. He desperately wanted to ask why her body looked like that. He desperately wanted to ask if she was really his sister. However, his voice refused to come out. As if this thing wanted to tell him something, the abrasive and dirty voice continued to leak out. She had completely turned around now and was facing him, and when Yi Sungjin saw the empty eye sockets, his deeply held breaths exploded out from his lungs. You, Hark? Would stitching together several worn-out mops resemble that thing? Within the many holes found on its skin, dried-up clumps of blood and rotting meat scraps were seemingly shoved in together. The meshed and torn flesh seemed to have hardened after the bits were forced together to their supposedly correct destinations. The ripped skin seemed like it was sewn back together and was draped over whatever was underneath. It was truly a hellish, nightmarish appearance. Piecing together the torn-away bits of limbs and flesh one by one would probably net a better-looking, more palatable result than this. Yi Sungjin unconsciously stumbled back, until his heels got entangled and he fell down on his butt. His legs madly kicked the air as he tried to widen the gap between himself and that thing. It was then the comparatively normal-looking legs stopped approaching him. Her misaligned jaw that looked like it might fall off at any given moment began trembling up and down. Listn. $% hhuri. Yi Sungjin's mind fell further into disarray. He thought that he'd be dead meat by now, yet why did this creature stop advancing? And what was it trying to say to him? It was here that a crazy thought popped up in his head. He summoned what little courage he could. Is it you, Nuna? Nuna, really? It is you, Nuna. Hurry. SSSDT tand. Hurry, stand. While keeping his gaze firmly fixed on the creature, Yi Sungjin slowly got back up. GG guo, uawutsiadi, ff and... Go outside, find, you mean coins. Are you talking about coins? Don't worry, I haven't given up and I'm still looking for them. I'll definitely bring you back. The thing shook its head with some difficulty. It was as if it was saying that's not it. It, cc kuam miing, ss suuan. It weakly raised an arm somehow and pointed at the door. Cc kuam miing, tthhieri. Although it was hard to understand what it was saying, the boy still got to realize something. She was saying he needed to get out before something else showed up. Nuna, it is you, right? I'll definitely bring you back to life. That is why. SS Suung, JJG in Yi Sungjin's tearful voice seemingly caused the thing's shoulders to tremble as well. From its empty eye sockets, blood-colored liquid slowly oozed out. Muast, Livi, Uake. It was then. Awa ak, an ear-shattering scream coming from somewhere outside the lab shook the corridor hard. Mommy? Shin Sang-ah jumped up fright. Seol and Hyun Sangmin too wordlessly stared at each other. Hey man, did you hear that? Seol nodded his head. Goddamn it. Why the hell can't they just come back after finding enough for themselves? Where did that come from? Dunno. Could be from the 5th floor. Hyun Sangmin took off his cap and scratched his head. Seol carefully slid open the door. The darkened corridor seemed rather ominous and eerie. Although he had exited from the classroom, Seol had no idea what he should do now, since things were happening seemingly out of the blue. In the end, he chose to rely on his 9 eyes once more. The entire 4th floor corridor was bathed in a green hue. Seeing this, Seol's gut feeling told him that the scream came from the 5th floor. The 3 of them quickly climbed up the stairs. But, as soon as arriving on the 5th floor, they nearly collided into a teen boy running on the corridor. It was Yi Sungjin, and when he saw it was Seol, the boy's eyes opened wide. Mr. Yi Sungjin, what's going on? Hyung. Yi Sungjin suddenly grabbed Seol tightly. I saw her. I saw Nuna just now. You're Nuna? But how could that be? Yi Seola was already dead. She was the first one to lose her life back in the assembly hall after all. Seol carefully appraised the kid, but he didn't seem to be suffering from any form of mental duress. Seeing Seol's expression, Yi Sungjin quickly shook his head. No, hang on, it's definitely her. Her hair, her dress, everything. Yi Sungjin sounded frantic and confused, but his words did make Seol think for a minute. Then a thought of could it be brushed past his brain. Was it really Yi Seola? Yes, her. Appearance, it was a bit weird, but she told me to quickly get out of there and... You son of a... Seol somehow managed to swallow down the rising tide of curse words. The so-called deceased are actually the people who died earlier in the day, aren't they? If what Yi Sungjin said was correct, then this could be the only explanation. The lock of the 6th floor entrance has been disabled. The gate will be activated in 30 minutes' time. The 2nd floor metal barriers have been disabled. It was then alarm bells began ringing out loudly from their smartphones. What the hell? Hyun Sangmin cried out in shock after checking out these rather unexpected messages. What the fuck? Which insane motherfucker did this? What happened? Shin Sang-ah asked Seol, but obviously, he too had no idea. Only that, his gut feeling was busy telling him that this wasn't the end, that there was more trouble yet to come. No, it'll be fine. The situation had suddenly turned a little chaotic, but Seol quietly controlled his emotions to calm them down. Running around like a headless chicken would only intensify the level of confusion. Besides, didn't he already make preparations for events such as this one? For now, he decided to put aside the unanswered questions. There was something he needed to confirm first, although he thought that his suspicions might not be correct. Were you the one screaming just now, Yi Sungjin? No, not me, right, I also came here after hearing that. I thought it was a woman's voice. Shin Sang-ah anxiously spoke up. In any case, it's not this kid, so what are we going to do next? Hyun Sangmin gritted his teeth. If we're going to search, then we should split up, or we go back right now. Seol had found one of the 2 people on his mind, so going back to the safe zone now to the classroom, 3 to 1, didn't sound like a bad idea. How about we split up into 2 groups of 2 and 3? I mean, things could get dangerous. Seol was going to suggest going back, but then Yi Sungjin took the initiative first and voiced his opinion. Seol looked at the boy with a surprised expression, and Yi Sungjin became somewhat sheepish. Oh, I also want to help you. It's past midnight, thus things will definitely get dangerous. Also, the 6th floor access has been granted as well. Returning to the safe zone might not be such a bad idea. No, it's just that I think my Nuna wanted me to find something. Although he said that, Yi Sungjin's voice suggested that he wasn't entirely convinced of it himself. Find something? Seol's gaze sharpened. The surroundings became dyed in green. However, the color from one single spot dissipated almost immediately. The spot with no color whatsoever was the girl's toilet. The light was switched off inside the toilet. Sial confirmed a spot of blood on the floor right in front of the door. He slowly pushed it open. As if his senses were already familiarized with it, his nose reacted to the faint whiff of blood in the air. By turning on the light, the group could see the interior of the bathroom quite clearly. Yun Seora. The figure collapsed on the bathroom floor was none other than Yun Seora. Her huddled and crumpled body was shaking and convulsing uncontrollably. Sial got closer to her and ended up frowning deeply from what he saw. Even Ainz Sangmin issued a stunned gasp. What? What happened to her arm? It was just as he said. Yun Seora's right forearm was completely mangled. As if someone stabbed a knife and then went to town on the limb, the flesh on her arm was utterly torn up and destroyed. The bleeding was quite considerable, too, and even her bones were visible to the naked eye. Miss Yun Seora? Miss Yun Seora. Sial called out her name, but she didn't respond, simply convulsing over and over again. Please move aside. Shin Sang-ah hurriedly knelt down and took off her shirt. She ripped her top up, then proceeded to wrap the fabric around Yun Seora's shoulder and under her arm, and then securely tightened it. Her movements were well practiced and quick, as if she had performed actions like this countless times before. She then pushed open Yun Seora's eyelids and checked the eyes. A deep frown etched on her forehead. She's going through shock. She will die soon if we let her be like this. Yes, she will die. Yes, we need to do something, anything. Shin Sang-ah shouted out while repeatedly opening and closing Yun Seora's hand. However, Ainz Sangmin was comparatively calm as he spoke up. Since you did the treasure hunt, you should know it by now. There ain't no infirmary on either the 4th or 5th floor. The item draw. Sial spoke up, and the attention of the three rapidly dawned on him. Now that they thought about it, medical supplies was one of the listed items on the draw machine. What do we need to draw from there? Only after asking this question, Sial realized that it was the wrong one. From the onset, no one knew what would come out of the machine. I'll go and bring whatever comes out. Sial stood up while slinging his bag over his shoulder. What? You going alone? What's the matter? Let's not do it that way. How about this? This kiddo here and Miss will move Yun Seora over to the safe zone. Meanwhile, you spin that damn draw machine, and if we think we got the right crap, I'll take it back to the safe zone. I'll act as the go-between if it need be. Sial found this suggestion quite logical, so, although he knew time was of essence, he still nodded his head in appreciation. He was inwardly surprised as well now that the metal barriers on the 2nd floor were gone. That Geekwi monster would definitely show up sooner or later. Even then, Ainz Sangmin was keeping his promise. Let's hurry up. Ainz Sangmin pushed Sial's back, entrusting Yun Seora to the remaining two. Sial and Ainz Sangmin headed straight to the library. Perhaps fortunately, they didn't run into the deceased or other people. Unfortunately, though the medical supplies didn't want to come out, they got to draw plenty of food and daily necessities. They even ended up receiving the note from the guide, too. Sometime later, all they had to show for their effort was a couple of rolls of gauze, a bottle of antiseptic, and some ointments, etc., etc. They were neither here nor there. Let me just take these along for now. What about you? Go on ahead. Okay, don't strain yourself, though. Ah, right. As soon as I deliver these, I'll come back here right away. If I don't show up within 2 minutes, then that means something bad has happened to me. Don't worry, I'll rescue you. Ha, well, thanks for the sentiment, but I'm not playing here. I'm being serious. Ainz Sangmin was indeed dead serious, and he left the library like a streak of lightning. Sial concentrated on drawing from the machine. He was quite confident that he'd be able to kill this Geekwi monster if it showed up. Right now, he wanted to procure medical supplies if it meant he could help just a bit more. If Yun Seora died, then that would be the end of the road there. He thought like this and continued to move his hands without rest until his movements suddenly came to a halt. Why am I doing this? She was a complete stranger to him. So, what did it matter if she died or not? Sure, it'd be a pity if she did die, but was there a reason for him to go this far? while wasting his hard-earned coins even, he couldn't understand it. He thought that it'd be nice if he activated the future vision right about now. Sial hesitated, yet returned to spinning the draw machine, and so he finally got his hands on some rolls of compression bandages, a hemostat, as well as vials of morphine. But then, Sial realized that something was off. He thought that it was already well past the 2-minute mark, yet Ainz Sangmin hadn't returned. Sial felt a certain sense of anxiety creeping in after all. He thought that Ainz Sangmin was joking around and thus didn't pay attention back then. Now that he more or less got what he needed, Sial put them all in the bag and left the library. When he climbed down the staircase and arrived on the 4th floor, he ended up running into quite an unexpected sight. Chapter 16. A Dangerous Treasure Hunt 4. 7 people, consisting of Shin Sang-ah, Yi Sungjin, Ainz Sangmin, and Yun Seora, as well as 3 people Sial shared food with earlier on, were standing on the corridor right outside classroom 3-2. They seemed to be unable to enter the safe zone. That wasn't the end, however. Sial found 3 rather familiar figures outside classroom 3-1. Lee Hyung-sik and Jeong Minwoo stood triumphantly, while Kang Seok was sitting on a chair, looking quite relaxed and pleased with himself. "You finally showed up." Kang Seok raised his hand and greeted Sial. Ignoring him, Sial walked closer and spotted Ainz Sangmin's darkened expression. Anger was evident on his face as well. Shin Sang-ah looked like she'd had just about enough of those 3 too. They say it's a spell that restricts access. Ainz Sangmin glanced at Sial and groaned out. A spell that can restrict access. Just as he finished thinking this, Sial's steps came to a halt. No, that wasn't quite right. He couldn't go forward, as if there was an invisible wall blocking his progress. Sial lightly tapped on the seemingly empty air. Knock, knock. There was nothing in front of him, yet the sensation of knocking on cement was transmitted to his hand. "You're wasting your time. You see, I got this as a starting bonus. No one can enter without my permission." Kang Seok slowly fidgeted around with his fingers. There was a half-torn piece of paper held between his index and middle finger. "You haven't forgotten that my mark was silver, right? Mr. High and Mighty Gold Mark." Kang Seok giggled insidiously. Sial frowned slightly instead. "You opened the door to the 6th floor, didn't you?" "Bingo." "And why?" I got the key through the drawing machine. Don't you know that you will definitely receive the key if you spend 199 coins? Of course, Sial knew that. But he was curious of the reason why Kang Seok would waste his coins getting that key in the first place. After all, what with Sial and Yun Seora taking away almost all of the coins, Kang Seok and his goons couldn't have had the easiest time searching themselves. It would have been tough just finding enough for their gate usage fee, so why? Ah. It was then a hypothesis formed in Sial's head. He reflexively turned his head around to look behind him at the fainted Yun Seora. "Yup, as expected. I knew you were a smart guy," Kang Seok exclaimed in a display of pleasant surprise. "Actually, I have to admit that this was a gamble with low odds of success. I mean, in order for us to succeed, 2 things had to happen, you know what I mean. If you had chosen never to leave this safe zone in the first place, then my plan would have been all for nothing." "What are you saying?" "However, I definitely knew you'd crawl out of here. Seriously now, a nice gentleman like you wouldn't just sit still on your ass after hearing that loud scream, am I right? As for Yun Seora, well, I was planning to approach her when the time was right, but for some reason she was getting really fired up trying to find more coins. Oh well. It was a good thing for us in the end, so it doesn't matter, right?" Hearing this, the pieces finally fell to their intended places. The first step of Kang Seok's plan was to get the 6th floor access key. With 3 of them working together, finding 199 coins wouldn't have been that difficult. After acquiring the key, Kang Seok kept a close eye on the situation. From the very beginning, he never planned to hit Sial. No, he planned to attack Yun Seora the moment she revealed that she was in possession of the map. The timing was important, but the main variable remained Yun Seora. Kang Seok had to try something, anything to separate her from Sial. The original plan was to have one of their members assault either Yi Sungjin or some other poor sucker to draw Xiao away. And in the meantime, the remaining two would attack the isolated Yun Seora. Her personality meant that, even if there was some kind of an incident unfolding somewhere, she'd not care and thus not make a move herself. However, Yun Seora was focused on finding more coins well beyond the midnight mark. How could this situation be any better for Kang Seok and his goons? So, Trio assaulted Yun Seora as she entered the girls' restroom. After robbing her of her coins, they went to 6th floor before Xiao reached the bathroom and opened the door. Then, when Xiao was still on the 5th floor, they came back down to the safe area and activated the restriction spell. All of you lost your damn minds. Shin Sang-ah loudly swore at them. You insane bastards. You crippled a person to this degree just for some measly coins. Nope, Tilda, that wasn't my original intention. I just wanted to knock her out. I swear that was all. Kang Seok defended himself as if he was being wrongly accused of a crime. But then, that girl was so damn persistent, you know what I mean. She grabbed onto the bag and didn't want to give it up, and that really pissed me off. So that's why. The end of Kang Seok's sentence blurred. Jiang Minwoo standing next to him giggled unsightly, and then, from seemingly out of nowhere, produced a dagger and performed a stabbing motion in the air. He too was an invited, albeit as the bronze mark. KKK. With an exquisite ill-timing, a devilish roar resounded out from the distance. The complexions of almost everyone present paled. The very first monster they encountered upon the start of this journey, the one that gave them such a nightmare, the Geekwi, was climbing up to where they were at this precise moment. Wow, sounds like that thing is really pissed off, isn't it? Oh well. It's been locked out down below all this time, so there's that. Kang Seok and his two cronies looked extremely relaxed, if you're waiting for the end of this spell's duration. Well, I feel like I should inform you right now that you all should just give up. Are you saying it'll last forever? No ways. It's not that crazy a cheat item. Not only the duration, but the size of the effective area is limited, actually. If I were to increase the area to its maximum permitted width, then it'll probably last around 8 minutes, tops. But what do you think will happen if I only keep the area to half its maximum size? Like, only around this part of the corridor. Kang Seok pointed once each towards the safe zone's front and rear entrances. Xiao didn't reply. There was no need to, after all. Kang Seok was implying that, when the spell's covered area decreased in size, the duration of the spell would increase instead. With that Geekwi coming up, you wouldn't be able to go to the 6th floor yourself, though. Oh, that? You don't have to worry. You see, I'm a really lucky bastard. Look here. Kang Seok pulled out another piece of paper and waved it around the air. See, I've got another paper talisman with a spell written on it, Tilda. Seeing how he was playfully teasing Xiao and others like that, it seemed this must have been his natural-born talent. Xiao couldn't help but think that the reason the bastard turned out this way was all thanks to suffering a bad prenatal development or something close to it. Please, let us in. Someone behind Xiao shouted out. It was the young man who tried to sneakily ask Xiao to revive his dead friend, right before the treasure hunt commenced. I haven't done anything wrong to you, have I? Hearing that, Xiao couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. Are you trying to imply that I did something wrong, then, forming a fake expression that screamed, I didn't think about that? Kang Seok opened his eyes wide and began rubbing his chin in a show of deep deliberation. Then, as if he was being a benevolent benefactor, he murmured rather loudly. Yes, indeed, it could be so. I'm sure it's unfair to you like this. Fine. Good. You, and you three, I'll grant entry. The three men and woman glanced at each other and then, without any hesitation, ran forward. It was a repeat of the time when they were entering the 2nd floor safe zone as soon as the metal barrier was lowered. Only after rushing inside the safe zone did they begin spitting out sighs of relief. And so, the moment Kang Seok had been waiting for finally came. He gazed at the remaining few outside the barrier with a relaxed smile. Huh. Xiao inwardly issued a disappointed groan. It seemed that the lessons taught on the 2nd floor weren't enough for these idiots. It's a good thing that I made preparations. Sial slowly reached inside his pockets, getting ready to finish this nonsense once and for all. But before he could, "So, what about you, little guy? Or you, Ainz Sangmin?" Sial's hand stopped just before he could grasp the spell balls. It was unknown what he was thinking at the moment while he withdrew his empty hand from the pocket. "You want to die like this? Hey, you want to die to that geekly monster that murdered your pretty and kind sister? Siblings, eh? Is it like, get one and you get another kinda deal?" Aye. "Hey, man, Miss Yi Siala must be spinning in her grave. I'm pretty sure she's fervently praying for me to save your hide right now." Kang Siak confirmed that Yi Sungjin was trembling like a leaf, and then shifted his attention to Ainz Sangmin. "And you did what you could already, right? No, wait a minute, could it be that you're feeling guilty conscience or something? What the? I thought you were a realistic bastard like me. Was I wrong? Just come in already. There ain't nobody here to tell you shit." Kang Siak's words were as slick and seductive as the whispers of a viper. After hearing those persuasive words, Ainz Sangmin and Yi Sungjin kept staring at each other before shifting their gazes to a single man. However, Sial simply stood there in silence. The first one to make his move was Yi Sungjin. He resolutely shut his mouth and trudged onwards. He walked past the invisible barrier and entered the safe zone. Keek, still so young, yet so impressively decisive, very good. You could even become a general in the future. Kang Siak lightly tapped on the youth's shoulder. The boy didn't say anything and entered the classroom. "However, you are more loyal than you look, aren't you, Ainz Sangmin?" Even then, Sial didn't show any response. Seeing this, Ainz Sangmin licked his lips regretfully and pulled his cap low. After spitting out a low groan, he began moving as well. "Sorry," after leaving behind that single word. "Oh, hang on. How about giving me a smoke first?" Kang Siak stopped Ainz Sangmin before the latter could enter the barrier. "Don't forget the light." Only after Ainz Sangmin personally lit the cigarette for Kang Siak was he allowed in. Kang Siak sucked in the cigarette smoke once. He then proceeded to feign shock after finding Shin Sang-ah standing there. "What's the matter with you now? Did you become an exhibitionist all of a sudden after taking your pants off once?" Shin Sang-ah gritted her teeth. Yi Sungjin and Ainz Sangmin's desertion was quite shocking, but there was a far more grave matter of her own safety to worry about here. Thinking back to the confrontation that happened in the assembly hall and the humiliation she had to suffer on the second floor, she just knew there was no way Kang Siak would make things easy for her now. However, Kang Siak proceeded to shatter her expectations as if he was trying to show off. "Hey now, I was just joking, you know, just a joke. I can tell that you ripped your shirt to stem Yun Seora's blood loss. That is commendable, but still, you keep standing there and you might come down with the flu, you know." Kang Siak then took off his cardigan and pushed it towards Shin Sang-ah's direction. He waved it around slowly as if telling her to come and take it. She couldn't help but grow suspicious. "You doing this again?" "Nope, I'm not trying to lead you on, I promise." "But why?" "Stop trying to make me say the obvious things. Take this and put it on already. Don't you get it already?" "Huh. Man, this lady is really slow on the uptake, huh? I'm saying you can also enter. Do I have to spell it out for you too?" Shin Sang-ah lightly swallowed her saliva. Why was he suddenly acting like this? She could just about understand the reason why, most likely. They must have held a deep grudge against Sial, all because of what happened on the second floor. Powerful indecision gripped her then. Meanwhile, Sial still showed no signs of movement. Shin Sang-ah stood between Sial and Kang Siak as she weighed up her options before a strange light flashed by on her face for the briefest of brief moments. And then, "Arg, my arm hurts." Just as Kang Siak lowered the offered cardigan just a tad, she moved her feet. That's right. She took a quick glance at Sial a couple of times, but her feet never stopped moving. Before long, she crossed the barrier. A strange smile formed on Kang Siak's face. "Oh, so you really came, eh?" "What do you mean?" No, you did well. Take this before my arm falls off, will you?" Kang Siak raised a small fuss while waving the cardigan around. Shin Sang-ah glanced at Sial one more time before reaching out. Just as her hand touched the offered clothing, though Kang Siak suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her in close. "Mommy." Like someone falling face first, she fell forward and ended up in the still-seated Kang Seok's embrace. You like looking for your mom a lot, don't you? W, what are you doing? Stay still, will you? You came here knowing this would happen already. Aye. Thud, thud. The low vibration from the floors below continued to get closer. Shin Sang-a's stiff body flinched ever so slightly. Kang Seok's hand, lightly patting her back, slowly crept lower, past her slender waistline and eventually arrived at her petite, round rump. Or, you'd rather go back outside? She began to tremble even more when Kang Seok whispered in her ear. Gradually, all strength seemed to seep out from her. Even when he began roughly kneading her butt like rice dough, Shin Sang-a didn't mount any form of resistance. Now, do you feel like listening to what I'm saying? You don't want to answer? Why, yes. When Shin Sang-a replied with honorifics, Kang Seok's complexion brightened to reflect his happiness. A few. My little bitch, look how soft and fluffy your ass is. Slap, slap. Kang Seok lightly slapped her rear, causing Shin Sang-a to squeeze her eyes shut. Quite surprisingly, though she then carefully wrapped her arms around Kang Seok's back and dug deeper into his embrace. Seeing this, Lee Hyung-sik and Jeong Minwoo wolf whistled quite loudly. Kang Seok burst out in boisterous laughter when she began gently rubbing her cheek to his. Very good. See, if you behaved this way from the beginning, everything would have been simpler. If you start making me feel happier by showing some egio and stuff from now on, I'm gonna treat you right, you know. While constantly enjoying the riches of Shin Sang-a's body, Kang Seok then pointed his chin outside the barrier. There were only 2 people remaining there, Seol and the currently unconscious Yun Seora. So, how does it feel to be betrayed? Why don't you enlighten us, Mr. Goldmark? Kang Seok status window 1. General information summon date, March 16, 2017, mark grade, silver sex/age, male/29 height/weight, 178.8 cm/72.6 kg current condition. Good job, LV. 0 invited nationality, Republic of Korea Area 1 affiliation, N/A alias, N/A2, traits 1. Temperament, maverick, tries to do things the way he likes, regardless of others. Self-centered, vigorously pursues his own personal gains only. 2. Aptitude, a gift of gab, possesses great talent at talking and making speeches. Sadism, feels sexual gratification only after inflicting physical or psychological pain to another person. 3. Physical level strength, intermediate low endurance, low intermediate agility, high low stamina, high low magic, high low luck, low intermediate remaining ability points. 0 Seol was busy looking at Kang Seok's status. He felt like he could understand just a little where it all went south for this idiot. Besides that gift of gab, he seemed to be suffering from a few noticeably negative traits. Hey, friend? Seol's brows furrowed slightly at that. A friend, huh? I feel really sorry for you. Kang Seok seemed to be genuinely sorry for Seol, judging from his facial expression. Why do you insist on living like that? He lightly tapped on Shin Sang-a's head and continued on. You don't seem to have any morals. Morals? Kang Seok began chortling as if he had heard something funny. Agu tilde, my friend. Ah, I get it. Really. There is a reason to be mindful when we're on Earth. There's laws and stuff, and if I don't follow them, I will end up behind bars. However, Kang Seok pointed at the ground below. However, this isn't Earth. Meaning there's no reason for me to stay the same here. You are an invited too, so you should know this by now, no? We're going to a brand new world, my ass. In the end, this is all just a fucking game, man. A game, and you're supposed to enjoy playing games. A game, huh? Yup. So what's the point of keeping up with your morals here? Like, what's the fucking point of being the best, kindest, and the fairest in this place? There is no one here who gives a shit about those things. Only me counts. I'm telling you, nobody cares. Ah, Ahyuk. Kang Seok suddenly grabbed Shin Sang-a's hair and yanked, causing her to gasp out in pain. Look at her. She's your proof. She only latched onto you for a bit so that she can leech off of you. I mean, you saw it with your own 2 eyes, right? How did she react when the situation changed just now? Shin Sang-a slowly averted her gaze. So the point here is that, don't suffer losses. You have that much talent, and I can tell you got a quick brain in that head of yours too, so why couldn't you just close your eyes and commit to the program? Sial continued to listen while standing there, his arms across his chest. You want to look after these weaklings? What a load of fucking bull. You think all those with power are evil, and weaklings are all pure, nice folks. You still think these losers are nice. Kang Seok passionately spat out his words. I can see that you've received some mental damage just now. But, you know what, don't be too discouraged, man. That's how Tilda the world operates. You're supposed to exceed the haves and step on the have-nots. That's the only way you can survive. You stay mindful of this guy and that girl, then sooner or later you'll be bitten by all sorts of stray mutts. Only you'd end up dead. Sial slowly closed his eyes. The words coming out of Kang Seok was something he too was thinking about recently. You still don't get it. What happened to Yi Siala earlier, and what's happening to you now? You see, it's not that the one who's supposed to make it are making it, but those who are willing to make it are making it. Also, it's not that those supposed to fail are failing, it's just that they are destined to never make it. Simple. Those who are destined to make it. That's right, Kang Seok shouted out of the blue and extended his hand. Now that I've talked this much, I'm sure you get it now. So, like true men, why don't we let bygones be bygones, as a symbol of starting over? Ah, as if he remembered something, Kang Seok withdrew his hand. I still should make you apologize, though. Sial's eyes narrowed. An apology, huh? That's right, an apology. The spot you sucker punched me still hurts, you know? Phew, Kang Seok spat out a sigh and loosened his shoulders. If you've really changed the way you think, I'm sure it's not that difficult for you to do something as small as making an apology, right? Sial quietly stared at Kang Seok. Well, it's a simple matter anyway. All you have to say is one word sorry, then we can become true friends afterwards. Sial took a glance at Yun Seora. Not her. You gotta leave her there. Kang Seok must have noticed Sial's gaze because he spoke in no uncertain terms. I'll have to refuse your apology if it comes from a mind space where you're thinking that you can't help it if it means saving Yun Seora. You see, I really hate hypocrites. Sial shifted his gaze away and then placed his left hand on the invisible barrier. So, Kang Seok smirked. His mouth opened up progressively wider in a smile as if his long-held wish was finally being granted. So, Sial sounded as if he was desperately squeezing out his voice unwillingly. Like a kid opening up his birthday present, the colors of Kang Seok's expression brightened even more. Sial held his breath, then clenched his fist. Son of a bitch. I was lying. Huh. Just as Kang Seok forgot what he was going to say and sat there stupefied, the safe area behind him became quite noisy. What the hell? Jiang Minwoo turned around to find out why it became so noisy over there, and, just as Sial was about to produce a spell ball from his pocket, Chapter 17. A Dangerous Treasure Hunt 5? Slam. Cuke. Blood spilled on the ground. Jiang Minwoo's large frame tilted unsteadily to the side before falling down hard with a loud thud. Then, from the seemingly empty space, Hyun Sangmin's figure slowly revealed itself like a ghost. There was a steel bar clutched in both of his hands. What the? The utterly stunned Kang Seok tried to stand up from the chair, but he couldn't. Shin Sang-ah was desperately clinging on to Kang Seok's waist with both of her hands tightly interlocked, as if the ghost of Nangi had come to possess her. Also, she was pushing down on him with all of her body weight as well. Sungjin, she shouted out while lowering her head in a hurry. Oh. Right. Kang Seok had no choice but to watch on helplessly as a chair descended upon his unguarded face. Accompanied by a dull impact noise, his head snapped to the left. Kua-ak. Kang Seok then slowly fell to the floor, his face dazed and frozen as a whimper leaked out of his mouth. Who the hell do you think you are to say my sister's name? Yi Sungjin angrily spat out while carrying a chair. Now left alone, Yi Hyung-sik dazedly stared at Hyun Sangmin as the latter man spat on the floor in disgust. Take a nap. One swing of the steel bar later, Yi Hyung-sik's upper torso spun as if he was performing a traditional dance. Then he crumpled to the ground. Sial could only stand there and stare at the three of them. still frozen in the middle of trying to throw a spell ball. As he continued to blink in a stupefied state, he ended up witnessing something interesting. Kang Seok was pulling out his other paper talisman even as his eyes were swimming from the impact to his head. He almost went unnoticed, but at that moment, Shin Sang-ah, baring her teeth like an angry lioness, pounced on him. Her teeth tore into his flesh. Kang Seok threw his head wildly while screaming in pain. She didn't stop there, though she then proceeded to climb up on top of his writhing body and lifted her hands up high. In all my life, slap her wide-open palm powerfully slapped Kang Seok's face. I've never ever seen. Slap. A damn perv like you who's so fixated on a girl's naked body. You damn son of a bitch. Slam, her third hit was an elbow drop roughly aimed at Kang Seok's nose. Blood exploded out from his nose. Kang Seok was laid out on the floor like a dead frog, and when her elbow hit, he began convulsing like a person having a seizure. But that must have not been enough to cool her anger as Shin Sang-ah stood up while breathing like an angry bull before lifting her foot up as high as she could. She wouldn't. Seeing this, Hyun Sang-min flinched and stopped his actions of making sure that Yi Hyung-sik and Jeong Min-woo would not get up again with the help from the steel bar meeting their faces. And he squeezed his eyes shut when her heel accurately slammed down on Kang Seok's family jewels. At %%%. Perhaps Kang Seok had some energy left over as his scream was loud enough to tear open his own vocal cords. Only then could Seol feel the restriction spell being deactivated. Since the owner of the spell lost consciousness, it was only natural that it would be cancelled. Seol was able to regain his focus when he heard the wet, sticky footsteps coming from his rear. It was the monster, Gikwi. It would have been strange if the creature didn't show up after such noisy chaos unfolded. Although Seol was confident in being able to kill the monster, he'd rather make sure that an unlucky accident wouldn't happen. Seol hurriedly carried Yun Seora into the safe zone and then pulled the still enthusiastic Shin Sang-ah inside as well. Miss Shin Sang-ah, Miss Shin, please stop. Let me go right now. Do you have any idea how much this bastard? It's the monster. The Gikwi has shown up. Mommy. When Shin Sang-ah confirmed the monster's terrifying outer appearance approaching them, her attitude did a 180 real fast, and she jumped into Seol's arms. Somehow successfully calming her down, Seol carried her back into the safe zone, and only then could the four of them breathe long sighs of relief. It felt like they had to go through a torrential storm, all thanks to a certain someone. Phew, first time ever hitting another person like that. Hyun Sang-min's hand, as it pulled out a cigarette, was unsteady. He offered what he extracted out from the packet first to Seol. Seol was about to pull out his own, but quietly accepted that instead. Hey man, what are we going to do about those three outside the classroom? Should we bring them inside then? You do that, and we are through. Hyun Sang-min bitterly spat out his opinion. Not too long after, the two men looked at the corridor through the classroom window. The Gikwi had come closer before anybody had noticed, and was in the middle of slowly devouring Jeong Min-woo. Crunch, crunch. Seeing the monster chew and swallow the man from his head first, Seol could only feel the sense of astonished disgust. What happened just now? Oh, that. Yeah, well, that boy and I exchanged a look, if you know what I mean. I was the one who signaled Miss Shin over here, though. Did that really happen? Seol felt rather dazed after hearing that since he genuinely had not noticed it. Hyun Sang-min chuckled, sounding rather pleased with himself. What, you thought we really betrayed you just now? How did you signal to each other? Like this. I just had to show this off a bit and... Hyun Sang-min began fiddling around with a half-torn piece of paper, but it happened right then. Kuwak. Suddenly, the sliding door was flung open and Kang Seok's face entered the classroom. His arm was clawing the floor, desperately trying to reel himself inside. The two men couldn't hide their surprise. To think he was able to regain his consciousness so quickly after being pummeled like that. His endurance was indeed higher than average according to his status window, so that might have been enough to explain his resilience. Where the hell do you think you're trying to enter? As soon as she saw him, Shin Sang-ah ran hard and kicked Kang Seok's head like a ball. K. Cuck. P, please. H, help me. Help you, you bastard. Have you forgotten all the crap you did already? P, please. Get lost, get lost. She stomped down on his hand that was desperately clinging onto the floor. In the end, he couldn't continue holding on, and his body was sucked out of the doorway like a receding tidal wave. Meanwhile, the Geekwi had finished devouring the two lackeys, and when it saw the bloodied Kang Seok, it reached out and grabbed him as if he was a delicious dessert. Hey. You devour that asshole slowly, okay? You eat him piece by piece, got that? The Geekwi blinked its large eyes several times while hearing that. Then it proceeded to chew on Kang Seok from his feet onwards. Ainz Sangmin began shuddering after witnessing all this. I didn't know she was this insane. Seol almost ended up agreeing out aloud with him there. And well, there we go, that thing finishing everything up. I hadn't gotten my share of satisfaction yet, though. Isn't it enough just watching them die like that? Well, I guess so, but still, how are we going to deal with that thing now? Ainz Sangmin sighed and covered his face. They might have taken care of Kang Seok and his lackeys, but a new problem rose up to replace them. The monster Geekwi. If that thing decided to camp out in front of the safe zone's door, then they had no answers to that at all. And it was obvious that they couldn't just stay in the safe zone for thousands, 10,000 years either. In that case, we better kill it then. Seol's voice was refreshingly confident. Kang Seok's screams that grew louder and louder eventually stopped at a certain point. When Seol opened the window and took a look, he could see a dead body that was missing the entire lower section below the chest. Seol then lightly tapped on the window sills. The Geekwi spun its head around like a bolt of lightning, faced him, and opened wide its jaw while emitting a chilling, shrill cry. Seol found the sight of the chewed-up human flesh stuck in between the monster's teeth rather disgusting and unappealing, so he quickly chucked in a spell ball down its basketball hoop-sized throat. The desired result occurred right away. The Geekwi began showing an unusual reaction after swallowing the spell ball. It began falling down on the ground while all of its limbs began convulsing uncontrollably. Its large eyes shook so hard the hidden whites could be seen. Out of his wide-open mouth, the monster belched out a thick, dark fog. I guess one ball wasn't enough. What did you throw in there? It's a spell ball called Poison Fog. Seol answered rather briefly and pulled a couple more spell balls out from his pocket before asking Ainz Sangmin a question. Right, what was that thing earlier? What thing? You suddenly appearing out of thin air like that. While speaking, Seol carefully took aim and threw another spell ball. The red-colored spell ball drew a small arc in the air and landed perfectly inside the Geekwi mouth once more. Oh, that? I also got a paper talisman through my random box, you see, for concealment. Concealment is it. Ainz Sangmin nodded his head while paying very close attention to the suffering Geekwi. I can stay invisible for a long time, but it gets cancelled if I attack someone just once. Didn't you say you only received 500 survival points? What the? Hey, man, let that one go, will ya? In any case, I helped out, didn't I? And I need to hold a hidden trump ka. Boom. Ainz Sangmin couldn't finish his sentence thanks to the sudden explosion. Ainz Sangmin mouthed, "What the hell was that?" and quickly took a look outside the window, only to yank the sunglasses off his face. KKKKEEK. Geekwi was rolling on the ground, evidently in a lot of pain. And whenever there were sounds of explosion coming from its innards, its entire body took on a reddish hue and began swelling up. You even something like that. Well, I was going to use it just now, but you guys made a move first, so... Oh, it's running away. The Geekwi was doing whatever it could to scramble away, but Seol simply chucked another spell ball, which accurately landed on the fleeing monster's back. An explosion of light occurred next, and dozens of spider-web-like things shot out, tightly bounding the Geekwi to the spot. It was about here that Ainz Sangmin decided to shut up and simply watch the proceedings unfold. All the enthusiasm he felt had been drained out of his system by now. And not only that, he was too worn out to feel shocked anymore. This should finish it off. The last spell ball landing on the monster transformed into a clear liquid and rained down on the monster that couldn't go anywhere. What happened? Shin Sang-ah asked after belatedly approaching them. I killed it. Siak spoke while pointing at the corridor. As it turned out, the most powerful spell ball of the four was the hydrochloric acid one. It even melted that scary monster into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Within the corridor, a mass of rotting flesh that was once the Gikwi could be found lying on the floor. Oh, wow. Really? Sial explained himself further as the others showed disbelieving reactions. The guide was right. By drawing a couple of spell balls, we could have got to have fun with this mission. And well, I got lucky with the right combination of spells. Spell balls? Combination? Yes, I spread the poison fog inside its body, which served to strengthen the explosions caused by the spell Ignite. I tied down the escaping Gikwi with the spell spider web, and then showered it with hydrochloric acid. Oh my! Shin Sang-ah's mouth opened wide, and she quickly brought up her hand to cover it. Isn't that a bit too cruel? Sial and Hyun Sangmin could only stare at her, totally dumbfounded, even Yi Sungjin too, as he sat there with his back against the wall. Dawn was mercifully uneventful. Inside the safe zone, where only 8 people now remained, 2 men were busy chatting to each other in a relaxed manner. After that chaos had died down, Shin Sang-ah regained her bearings and quickly treated Yun Seora's injuries. Thankfully, her life was spared, but Shin Sang-ah had no confidence about the arm, saying there was nothing she could do anymore. Besides, the treatment itself had been delayed, which didn't help. The 4 of them discussed, and they decided to stay put until midday. They were thinking of waiting for Yun Seora to regain her consciousness, but also, the main issue was with them all being just too damn fatigued to carry on any further. While looking on at the trio of Yi Sungjin, Yun Seora, and Shin Sang-ah softly snoring away, Sial quietly asked a question. I don't see that middle-aged man. Who? You know, that guy with glasses. Oh, the guy who gave up on his fammy. Cough, why? You want to go out and look for him too? Sial didn't reply and simply chugged down a bottle of energy drink. A short period of awkward silence flowed between them before Hyun Sangmin tapped a cigarette loose from the packet. Hey man, can I ask you about something? Back then, when you were staring down at Kang Siak, you were going to use those spell balls, weren't you? For the first time in a long while, a thin smile formed on Sial's formerly composed, serene face. You were planning to use one, but didn't, right? When Hyun Sangmin asked again to make sure, Sial simply nodded his head. Why did you do that? Well, the result was good, so there's that, but still. You said it before. Human beings would only reveal their true colors when pushed to a corner. I just wanted to confirm with my own eyes. This time, Hyun Sangmin became speechless. Another bout of silence descended upon them. But, a short while later, fuck, so did we pass or what? The 2 men laughed at the same time. Chapter 18. Rewards befitting one's achievements, 1. The morning sun rose up, but classroom 3-1 remained still and quiet. The very first thing Sial did after waking up was to confirm that his 9 eyes was still there. His vision became dyed in green before returning back to normal. Sial felt relieved after his ability activated without an issue. Then he came to realize that there were 3 people missing from the classroom. The bespectacled middle-aged man hadn't been seen since last night, but now, both Yun Seora and Yi Sungjin were gone as well. Where are they? The time was 09:47 a.m. There was still over 2 hours left until midday, so the hour of the deceased should still be active right now. I'm sure they are fine. Sial picked up his bag and the steel bar. Maybe because he and Hyun Sangmin ate a lot of food during the early morning hours, his innards were screaming out in bitter protest. Thankfully, toilets were located right near the stairwells of each floor, meaning the distance was rather mercifully short. After Sial took care of nature's call and exited from the bathroom, he spotted Yi Sungjin walking down the stairs, looking visibly downtrodden. After spotting Sial himself, the boy hurriedly bowed his head. Good morning, Hyung. Yes, good morning to you too. Did you sleep well? Yi Sungjin's smile seemed a bit awkward and weak, as if he found Seol's politeness strange. It's all right if you drop the honorifics, you know. Oh, that okay with you? Seol stopped using honorifics right away. He also noticed the boy's anxious demeanor as well. It was as if Yi Sungjin wanted to hurry up and get going, still in the middle of the treasure hunt. Yes. How many did you find so far? If I count the ones I found after waking up this morning, then it's enough to pay for my passage. Considering the fact that Seol and Yun Seora had monopolized the majority of the coins, this amount was nothing to scoff at. Seol could imagine just how hard the boy must have worked to find that many. Seol carefully appraised the round, innocent-eyed teenager's face for a bit. Because of his slightly below-average height and the baby fat still visible here and there, if he claimed to be a middle school freshman, anybody would be inclined to believe the boy. In hindsight, him hitting Kang Seok with a chair was a rather wonderfully mystifying act. Thanks for your help last night. I made it because of you. Ah, that's not true. That Hyung did most of the work anyway. Although the boy said so, both Yi Sungjin and Shin Sang-ah combined their strength to knock Kang Seok out. The boy might not have come up with the plan, but his role in it was still considerable. In any case, I didn't expect you to lend help. Of course I'd help. I too had to suffer because of him on the second floor. Oh, you did it out of revenge then? No, rather than revenge. I mean, he was deliberately indulging in only evil things. He had a really twisted, evil mind, you know? Seol chuckled slightly after hearing the teen's declaration. Indeed, Kang Seok was an evil man. As if he had more things to say, Yi Sungjin hesitated and mumbled softly. Besides, I got a feeling that you would have resolved the matters by yourself anyways. Why do you think that? I mean, you did kill that Geekwi monster so easily. And also, he hesitated again before continuing on. I kinda thought that Nuna was telling me to find you. Miss Yi Seola said that? Yes. No, I mean, it's just my gut feeling. I'll ask her after I revive her. Just the mere thought of his older sister must have made him happier, because there was a radiant smile forming on Yi Sungjin's face. It was pleasing to see that the boy hadn't lost hope, so a warm smile also spread on Seol's face as well. Yeah, I'm also getting curious too. Seol walked up the staircase. The boy's eyes dazedly chased after him going up. When Seol beckoned him to follow, Yi Sungjin hurriedly moved his legs. I think there aren't any more coins left on the 5th floor, and you don't have to. Nope. There are no coins left on the 4th floor for sure, but there should be 4 more left on the 5th. Seol knew this because he had checked the diary of the unknown student already. Besides all that, how did you and your sister receive your invitations? Seol quickly changed the topic. Although Yi Sungjin tilted his head while looking unconvinced, he still honestly retold his tale in full detail. From the beginning, when his mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and how the family had to go through a tough struggle for a while. How he had heard of a certain medicine that could cure the said disease existing in the paradise from the mouth of a person the family knew. Finally, to how he and his sister got to receive their invitations. When Seol asked about the matter of his schooling, Yi Sungjin mumbled some things and hurriedly glossed over it. Seol found the remaining coins while listening to the story, and the two of them headed off to the library next. The coins remaining in his possession was 885 from the original amount of 1,065. He gave 30 to Shin Sang-ah, and he spent further 150 on trying to get the right medical supplies for Yun Seora. Now that there was no need to spend coins to open the 6th floor, even after deducting his passage fee, he could still freely spend 785 coins. I'll try my best, but I can't give you any guarantees, okay? Yi Sungjin looked like he still hadn't understood what was going on. I have nearly 800 coins on me. The revival should be listed under special, so I should be able to spin the machine twice. Seol said as such while pushing open the library's door. Yi Sungjin's eyes grew very large. Hyung. Belatedly regaining his senses, he quickly chased after Seol, but both of their steps came to an abrupt halt right afterwards. There was someone here already. On the floor around the item draw machine, 20-odd coins were strewn about, and near them, the owner of the coins was squatting on the ground, her hood pulled up to hide her face. Her right arm hung limp. Ah! Yi Sungjin gazed on at this sight with pitying eyes before he proceeded to pick up all the coins on the floor. Sial approached Yun Seora and asked her in a soft voice, "Are you feeling okay?" Her head buried between her knees trembled slightly. Sial thought she might be raising her head, but it turned out that she was just shaking it instead. "Your right arm, you can't move it, at all." She silently nodded her head. Here." Yi Sungjin sheepishly entered into the conversation and cautiously reached out with his hands cupped together. Coins filled his hands. Finally, Yun Seora raised her head. She blinked her reddened eyes several times. Tear marks were still visible on her cheeks. Her slowly rising left hand trembled visibly to the naked eye. She received the coins with much difficulty and dropped her head again. Sial gently grasped the shoulder of the panicking and flustered boy. He then shook his head quietly, which led the boy to slowly nod his head in understanding. Sial then moved on, choosing to insert his coins into the machine in silence, instead. When he inserted the 300th coin, he could clearly hear Yi Sungjin gulping down a huge dollop of saliva. Sial looked down in time to see a familiar-looking item box fall down with a clung. A quill pen of flowing consciousness, X1 a quill pen? What? Whatever it was, it definitely wasn't what he wanted, which meant that he only had one chance left. Getting a bit more tense now, Sial began inserting more coins to the machine. The second special he got was a box he hadn't seen before. His heart beat from anticipation as he opened the lid only to find 10 spell balls neatly arranged inside. Just to make sure, he picked each one up and carefully checked them out. Unfortunately, these balls seemingly weren't designed for things like reviving someone from the beginning. He found none that could help. "I'm really sorry." It's fine. I know that you did this only out of your generosity." Although he said that, Yi Sungjin was noticeably despairing. The higher one's expectations were, the greater the disappointment one would suffer. The teen was trying his best not to show it, but tears were forming on his eyes. But there was nothing either of them could do. The world didn't operate to their wishes and whims, after all. And all of the coins had been recovered by now, too. Sial was wondering how should he go about consoling the boy, but ended up flinching when a finger poked him on the ribs. "Oh, it was you, Miss Yun Seora." She suddenly offered her hand. "Here." She didn't speak for long, but it was clearly audible. And on her small left hand, a miniature bottle wrapped up in paper could be found. Sial dazedly stared at both of them. This is the potion of revival. It was the first time Sial heard her speak a proper sentence. There was a certain coldness to her voice, but it was also rather pleasing to listen to as well, just like a cool wind brushing past one's ears. "Are you giving this to us?" "Yes." This was unexpected. Why was this disinterest personified doing an act of kindness out of the blue? As if she had read Sial's facial expression, Yun Seora tried to clear up her position. "I heard from the boy not too long ago. Yesterday." When Yun Seora shifted her gaze to Yi Sungjin's direction, the boy got flustered and raised his voice. I ran into her earlier during the treasure hunt. She asked me what was going on, so While he was speaking up, Yi Sungjin's eyes were completely fixated on Yun Seora's offered hand. "Is it okay for us to receive this? What about your arm? This item won't work on a living person. You'll understand once you read the paper." Sial cautiously received the bottle. Her skin that came in contact with his was cold and very smooth. Yun Seora spat out a long sigh and brushed past the two males to leave the library as if she was finished with her business here. Thank you so much," Yi Sungjin shouted out loudly. "Thank you. Really, truly, thank you." Tears were already flowing out from the boy's eyes as he bent his back forward 90 degrees. "Thank you." Sial too thanked her. She stopped walking then. "Me too." She then bowed slightly as well before quickly leaving the library for good. "I guess she's a nice person, after all." Sial tilted his head slightly before quickly unwrapping the paper around the bottle. If he delayed any longer, Yi Sungjin might die of anticipation right in front of his eyes. Requirements for usage 1. To be used on the deceased, only 2. A portion of the deceased's body part, 3. The cancellation of the state of insubordination for the deceased death of the Gikwi. The first and the third requirements are met already, but a portion of the body part? I know where to find that. Sungjin hurriedly pulled Sial along. The place the boy led them to was a laboratory. However, as soon as the boy enthusiastically jumped inside the lab first, Sungjin screamed out in fright. Sial held the steel bar tightly and entered too, only for a shocked gasp to escape from his mouth. The middle-aged man, missing since last night, was lying on the floor, his body torn in half, from top of his head right down to his groin. He wasn't here last night, though? Sungjin fell even deeper into frightened confusion. However, Sial could roughly guess what happened here. Just by taking one look at that gruesome sight, it told him all he needed to know. Did they hate him that much? To kill their husband, a father, like this, it was in stark contrast to Siala, who allowed her younger brother to run away. SS Suung JJG in. An ear-grating voice came from the corner of the lab. Sial and Sungjin spotted a figure squatting down there, just like how Yun Seora did back in the library. Checking the appearance of this figure, Sial's brows instinctively furrowed. It was his first time seeing a deceased, and sure enough, it was as grotesque as he had imagined. Nuna, Sungjin quickly recovered from the shock and jumped up and down. You can live again, really? Eli Ivi? This Hyung got the potion to revive you. At the same time, Sial could feel his hand getting rapidly warmer. The miniature bottle in his hand began emitting bright light. He didn't know what to do next, so he simply removed the cork to see what might happen then. The clear liquid inside the bottle flowed out by itself and slowly danced in the air. The way it wiggled like that, it seemed to be asking Sial who he wanted to revive. Sial pointed at Siala. The liquid then smoothly flew over as if it understood his command. It disappeared as soon as coming in contact with the deceased in the blink of an eye, as if it got sucked in. Pot, a bright light exploded out from Siala's figure. It was so blinding, Sungjin near her had to squeeze his eyes shut. However, Sial could still see a blurry but amazing sight unfolding amongst the cascading rays of brilliant light. He saw her wounds slowly disappear, and new flesh grew to replace the missing parts. Then, with a sudden flash, the blinding light shower came to an abrupt end. At the spot where the light had died down, a girl was sitting on the floor, her eyes wide open and blinking non-stop. The previously grotesque appearance was nowhere to be found, only to be replaced by the warmth and prettiness she used to have. Finally, Siala had been revived. En Nuna a? Sungjin ran as if he was flying and embraced his older sister tightly. The two of them must have more tears left to shed. Siala remained confused for a while, but when she saw Sungjin crying his eyes out, she too began sobbing as well. Sial quietly left the laboratory while closing the door behind him. It was a moving reunion, but he didn't belong there. He hesitated slightly, wondering whether he should leave them alone before he leaned against the door and crossed his arms. While listening to the siblings cry their hearts out, he fidgeted around with the steel bar. He was staying, just in case a deceased overheard their cries and sauntered over here. When Sial returned with the siblings, chaos unfolded inside the safe zone. Hyun Sangmin was in the middle of chewing a piece of bread, but his jaw dropped so much that the piece actually fell out. Shin Sang-a's reaction wasn't all that much different from his. Seriously now, the revival thing was all true. After listening to a brief explanation, Hyun Sangmin laughed out loudly. Sial handed over a packet of food from the convenience store to Yun Seora, as well as to the siblings, who had been expressing their gratitude non-stop since from a while ago. Sial completely ignored their thanks and began roughly chomping on a convenience store rice ball, as if he was completely fed up. When Hyun Sangmin threw him a questioning look, Sial finally relented and opened his mouth. I heard them thanking me 1,000 times while coming here. Now I understand why some people develop neurosis. Stop exaggerating. No, it's the truth. It started to get annoying around the 300th time they thanked me. I told them it's enough, but they won't listen. Even then, the siblings were expressing their gratitude in a multitude of ways and gestures. Sial ended up face-palming before pointing towards Yun Seora, who happened to be sitting away from them a light distance away. "Miss Yi Siala?" "Yes, yes, thank you. I am truly grateful." "How should I go about repaying your kindness? You revived me and helped me to meet my little brother again, so I'd like to somehow—" Wait, I got you. I hear you, but here's the thing, I didn't find the revival potion, but she did. She gave it to me." Yun Seora stopped quietly biting into her sandwich and threw him a look of protest. Sial resolutely ignored her. "Is that true?" "Yes. If it weren't for Miss Yun Seora drawing the potion, reviving you wouldn't have been possible." "Why, yeah, that's right, Nuna. That lady gave the revival potion to Hyung." "Lady Yun Seora?" Yi finally left Sial's side. He breathed out a sigh of relief and changed his target to Yi Sungjin this time. He pulled out 100 coins and handed it over to the boy. "Your Nuna's passage fee." "Ah." Yi Sungjin cried out as if he hadn't thought about that until now. "Please, just stop." Sial pleaded. "You don't need to thank me. In fact, don't even think to say thank you. You even mentioned thaw of thanks. I'm not going to give you these coins. Got it? If you're grateful, then you quickly scoot over to Miss Yun Seora and tell her that. Just like your sister." Yi Sungjin carefully received the coins with both of his hands. And, like a good boy, he did as he was told, and after joining his sister, combined together with her to land as many attacks of gratitude on poor Yun Seora as possible. Only after somehow taking care of the crisis did Sial get to enjoy his meal in peace. Shin Sang-ah and Hyun Sangmin simply giggled while watching this unfold. "I might die of laughter here, you know. Just look at Miss Yun Seora's expressions. Yeah, that's quite something else, really. By the way, hey man, how many coins do you have on you now, besides the passage fee, that is?" Sial replied 85. Hyun Sangmin used his eyes to send him a signal, telling him to look to his side. A trio of 2 men and a woman couldn't participate in the relaxed mealtime, and they could only look on in daze from the corner of the classroom. Seeing them, Sial quietly asked Hyun Sangmin, "Aren't they going to have a meal too?" "Oh, please. Why should I waste my precious food on those guys? Well, if they were my comrades in arms, sure, I might have spared some." Even Shin Sang-ah nodded her head in agreement. "And also, not too long ago, they asked me if I could spare them any coins." "Ah, that's right, their passage fees. They are short by how many?" "All 3 of them combined, around 20, maybe 30. Hyun Sangmin whispered the information before snorting out in dissatisfaction. "What a bunch of shameless fools. Hey man, you aren't thinking of helping them out, right? Don't help them. Like never." For some reason, even Shin Sang-ah piped in with a small voice. After the incident on the 2nd floor, her relationship with the trio had been soured somewhat. If they were like Yi Sungjin, who at least tried to open the metal barrier, then who knows? However, as it was now, Shin Sang-ah couldn't forget the looks of "it'll be fine as long as you're not one of us" they gave her as soon as Kang Seok made his offer back then. Even putting aside the fact that they actually didn't do anything at all, she lost what little favorable impression she had from their selfish desires to survive at someone else's expense. Sial didn't reply. Instead, he pulled out the remaining coins and handed them over to Hyun Sangmin. "You use them. There's still some time left before midday. You want me to spend them? On the draw machine? If you're scared of the deceased, then don't. However, I haven't spotted a lot of them so far." Hyun Sangmin's expressions became rather strange just then. "What the? I can really spend these?" "I'm telling you, yeah. You can." Sial didn't have anything else to draw from the machine anyways. Also, since he had peeked into Hyun Sangmin's status window, Sial figured it would be smarter to look after him every now and then. Not to mention, if it weren't for Hyun Sangmin, Sial might not have been able to kill the Geekgui, so this was sort of a reward as well. "Seriously, you aren't going to say anything about how I spend these, right? Use them or throw them away, do whatever you feel like." Since Sial said as much, there was no reason for Hyun Sangmin to refuse. With the coins in hand, the expression on his face resembled a naughty kid about to pull a prank. He then sneaked a glance to his side and left the classroom, his steps full of swagger. "Let me go with you." Shin Sang-ah stopped her meal and chased after him. The trio glared at Sial with resentful eyes and then also left the classroom, clearly running after Ainz Sangmin and Shin Sang-ah. Now that those three had seen the coins exchanging hands, they no doubt would beg for some of them. Sial sniggered and began enjoying his meal in peace for a bit, while spectating on Yun Seora and her troubles. However, he nearly toppled over from his seat when the Yi siblings abruptly returned to his side instead. Yun Seora was ignoring them outright in the beginning, but in the end, even she couldn't endure and chased them away, while almost blowing up in anger. However, didn't the old saying go something like, even if the heavens fell, there would always be a spot for one to stand up? A message from the guide has arrived. Before long, the midday had arrived. The message told them to gather on the 6th floor. When Sial got to the 6th floor, he ended up feeling rather disappointed. He was wondering what kind of layout he'd get to see, but as it turned out, the 6th floor was just a normal rooftop. There was a round portal glowing in faint red light set up in the middle of the roof. The guide, Han, and the blonde maid were standing next to the portal and waiting for the arrival of the survivors. Yes, you've all finally arrived. I must congratulate you on successfully passing all of your missions. Han gave them a formal greeting. He also looked like a happy man today as well. So much so, he felt like a somewhat different person from the Han of the assembly hall. Very good, very good. Now that everyone has gathered here, allow me to officially announce the completion of Area 1 tutorial. Clap, 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 clap. The blonde maid silently clapped her hands. Of course, no one else followed her example. As the awkward atmosphere descended on the rooftop, Sial was realizing there was a slight inconsistency to the guide's declaration. Is this everyone? Because there were only 6 people on the rooftop. The trio of 2 men and a woman were nowhere to be seen. From the beginning, when 38 Lives started this journey, while Han started gushing on and on about something, Sial approached Ainz Sangmin, who was whistling out in a carefree manner, and asked softly, "What happened?" "Oh, you mean with the coins? Those 3 people, did you kill them?" "What? No, I gave 55 coins to Shin Sang-ah. I told her to draw whatever, and whatever she got, we split down the middle. And the rest. I'm sure you all wish to enter the portal right away, but regrettably, you will have to wait a little longer. We need to complete the setting of your dispositions, and also, most importantly, we need to distribute the completion bonuses as well." Han was still in the middle of his speech. Ainz Sangmin stared at the guide, who seemed to have finally gotten around to the main topic while whispering in a low voice. "So, what do you think I did? If you promise me not to get mad, then I'll tell you. I promise. I threw them away, all 30 coins. Sial doubted his own hearing then. "You threw them away?" "That's what I said. I chucked them down the toilet bowl and flushed them away." Ainz Sangmin lowered his sunglasses. Even his eyes were smiling now, too. "Not only that, I did it while they were looking on. Damn, what a shame. I wish I could have stayed and watched them throw a tantrum." Ainz Sangmin continued to giggle away. Chapter 19. Rewards befitting one's achievements, too. "Will you please keep it down over there?" The guide issued a stern warning as soon as things became a bit noisy. Ainz Sangmin didn't say anything else and suppressed his laughter. "First of all, let us commence with evaluating your level of cognition." As soon as those words were spoken out, a message popped up in front of everyone's vision. 5. Level of cognition actions/emotions/disposition. This is how it should look to you. From the left, actions, emotions, and disposition. Well then, let's start by assessing your actions. Suddenly, the leftmost column began spinning up and down, just like how it was with a slot machine. Countless words flashed by. The first section reflects how you appear to others through your actions and speeches. As Han's explanation continued, the speed of the dizzying spin gradually slowed down. Righteous, fussy, temperamental, disgusting, all sorts of descriptors flashed by. Sial's column went back and forth between moderate, neutral, and hypocritical, before finally stopping on the word moderate. "What?" Shin Sang-ah responded to her evaluation as if it was the most absurd thing in the whole world. "This can't be right. Is this really correct?" "I assure you, Things will only get tougher for you if you are getting shocked already." Han chuckled to himself and clapped his hands. Then the middle column began spinning this time. The middle column, emotions, reflects your thought process or what you feel from facing certain events or phenomena. Out of the three, you could say it has the most variability. For Sial, the middle column came to a stop with the word curiosity. Sial nodded his head in agreement. He then saw Hyun Sangmin giggling to himself and couldn't help but get curious. What did he get as his assessment result? And finally, the last column, disposition. This one has been raising a lot of controversy for a long time now. Sial didn't even have the time to check using general observation before the third, and the final column began spinning. The disposition column indicates your inclination according to your overall personality. There have been numerous cases where this part simply repeats what's been shown on temperament of your status. Sial's heartbeat sped up. He was judged to be weak-willed and short-tempered before. Since he couldn't really dispute those, he had no choice but to unhappily accept them until now. However, there have been quite a few cases where the disposition and temperament didn't match. Han's voice became rather serious there. How could such a thing be possible? After many debates and research later, we focused on the fact that temperament was listed under traits, while disposition was listed under the level of cognition. And so we arrived at a temporary conclusion. Words such as altruistic, selfish, rational, lethargic, evil, detestable flashed by in front of Sial's eyes, until the spinning speed gradually slowed down. If your temperament is a personality trait formed by interacting with the world at large, then Sial's column heavily seesawed in between the words moderate, hot-headed, and narrow-minded. Then your disposition should indicate your true nature. In other words, the foundation that forms the core of who you are. That's what we decided on. However, the column suddenly spun again wildly and landed on chaos instead. If you find that your disposition and temperament don't really match, or you find it disagreeable and that you're unhappy with the assessment, allow me to offer you this advice. Han's voice became as light as air once more. If you wish to change your disposition, then you do well to try changing your temperament first. You see, I personally hold the view that a good temperament would naturally lead your disposition towards the nicer path. If you wish to change, those words rang inside Sial's heart. On the flip side, your disposition looks good, but your temperament happens to be not. I can confidently say this: your disposition, too, will slowly deteriorate and end up corrupted, eventually matching your temperament. The implication was simple. He was saying that one should try to change one's temperament before it negatively influenced one's disposition. And so, the evaluation came to an end. Sial carefully surmised his own evaluation results. Moderate actions and thoughts are sensible. /curiosity /chaotic. Many things are jumbled up and is impossible to unravel. Your status window is being updated. Chaotic. Although his head was tilting to a side ever so slightly, he could more or less understand why he ended up with that assessment. No matter what, the contradiction coming from the disposition he used to have up until his early 20s, the disposition he revealed after falling into a gambling addiction and losing his ability, and finally, the disposition he suddenly gained after experiencing that dream, was as chaotic as one could imagine. Of course, that's not an easy thing to accomplish. The disposition has the lowest chance of changing after all, meaning a person doesn't easily change. Han winked a little here. It happened then. Kung kung. Accompanied by loud thuds indicating that someone was coming up, the 6th floor door was violently flung open. A clearly incensed woman and a young man hesitantly following behind her entered the rooftop. They were the trio from before. No one of them was missing now. The girl who pleaded with Sial to save her older brother was not among them. We've brought along the passage fee. With an icy voice, the woman threw down the object in her hand. It was a wooden handle of a mop, one that could be found commonly in any janitor's closet. However, from where a mop head should have been, only blood managed to drip down to the floor. Sial felt like he could hear the sorrowful wail of a woman coming from down below. However, The young man hurriedly closed the door behind him. A strange but conspicuous light flashed by Han's monocle. "What's the matter? Are we not allowed up here?" "No, I shall acknowledge it." Han simply smiled even when the woman spat out coldly. In the end, the two belated arrivals also had to go through the assessment of their own level of cognition. As soon as that was completed, Han ordered everyone to line up in a row in front of the warp gate. The first one on the line was the last woman to arrive. She was glaring at Ainz Sangmin with venomous eyes. A deep grudge could be spied on them as well. "Egu tilde, I'm suo scared." Of course, Ainz Sangmin didn't even bat an eyelid. The woman then cast the coins off in a disgusted manner. However, Han showed off an incredible display of dexterity and caught every single one of them. And while maintaining a nonchalant smile, he pulled out a piece of document to read. "Let's see. It was simple to calculate the points for Miss O'Miniung. You will receive 35 survival points." Survival points. You haven't done anything during the first mission, so out of the possible 100 you get 0. No need to mention the second mission, either 0 out of the possible 150. In the third mission, you couldn't even find enough coins for your passage, so also 0. However, just now you have been judged to have struggled bitterly for your own survival, so 35 points were added to your tally. That is all. Where are we supposed to use these points, then? You'll find out once you get there. The woman, O'Miniung, glared at Han for a long, long time. She then wordlessly stepped through the warp gate and disappeared from the view. The next person was the young man who had followed O'Miniung up to the roof. "You have 0 points." Han's evaluation was short. "You've done nothing. Literally nothing. I can't even see one category where you might have earned a point or 2. The young man was clearly embarrassed as he stepped through the gate. And so the entry procedure carried on. Yun Seora received 317 points. Shin Sang-ah, 116. Ainz Sangmin, 302. Yi Sung-jin, 114. As for Yi Seala, she could only receive 46 for the things she had done in the assembly hall. As people stepped through the gate and disappeared one by one, Seal's turn eventually arrived. Han began groaning out as soon as seeing Seal's face. "Really now? I thought I was going to die while trying to calculate your points. Although it wasn't as difficult during the first mission, the second and third missions were really problematic for me. Especially so during the second mission, when things became really, completely nonsensical. Not only were you not satisfied with breaking the all-time clear record, you then proceeded to destroy all of the traps as well as the mechanisms found there. Such an event is unprecedented." The tone of his voice was quite combative, but Han was beaming rather brilliantly. "In any case, here is your points tally. During the first mission, 200 bonus points added after successfully chasing away the Geekwi from the assembly hall. Also, you made a correct move by going upstairs as soon as emptying out the convenience store. Since you were in possession of the diary, all you needed to do was to procure some food. So, 100 bonus points. Another 50 bonus points for rescuing Miss Shin Sang-ah. That amounted to 350 points. Hearing this, Seal tilted his head. "I thought 100 points was the maximum for the first mission. That's only for the base points. If you perform certain actions that weren't included within the mission goals, you're eligible to receive bonus points if those actions fall under certain categories. These bonus points can be as much as double the amount of base points." Seal nodded his head in acceptance. "Is that why both Yun Seora and Ainz Sangmin have high scores? Just by receiving the points from the first mission, he had become the top scorer. For the second mission, the basic score is 150. 300 bonus points for the fastest clear in history. Another extra 300 points for destroying every trap and mechanism found. Total of 750 points. For the third mission, the base points on offer are 150. 300 bonus points for finding as many coins as you have during the treasure hunt. 300 extra points for killing the Geekwi alone. 150 extra points for reviving Miss Yi Seala. 100 extra points for the act of giving out some of your coins to others, seen as an act of mercy. Total of 1,050 points. When calculated together, 2,150 points. Han spoke non-stop up to here, but he wasn't finished yet. And finally, possessing the mark of survival, which adds a 10 times multiplier. So your total survival points tally is 21,500. Han folded the paper away and stared at Sial with an envious expression. You must be very happy. Your points tally is the highest in history. You might even be able to use the VIP store as well. The VIP store. There is such a thing. You'll see once you get there. Oh, I almost forgot. Han suddenly displayed an extremely friendly attitude and leaned in closer to whisper something to Sial's ear. Sial began frowning somewhat after hearing the guide out. I do have it in my possession. But why? I was only reminding you since you seem to have forgotten all about it. After all, you were lucky enough to draw them in the first place. Phew. Sial was about to ask something, but then the blonde maid began pushing him from behind. Hey, wait a minute. My role ends here. The last thing Sial got to see as he was being pushed into the warp gate was, I wish you best of luck in the neutral zone. Han politely bowing his head, his hand placed on his chest. As soon as Sial entered the warp gate, he arrived inside a small room. 7 people who entered before him were waiting there. The blonde maid was still pushing Sial forward while panting quite heavily. Once they were in, she let out a big sigh of relief and walked past everyone. She opened the exit door and pointed towards the passage beyond it, before walking first in light, airy steps. The passageway was made up of marble. It was long and dark like a tunnel. The group simply followed the maid while remaining completely clueless as to where they were headed off to. But, when they spotted light from a distance, a certain sense of excitement began filling them up. The maid arrived at the exit of the passage first, and her steps came to a halt. She then softly opened her mouth. Korea, Area 1, cleared. An unexpectedly clean and beautiful voice came out of her mouth. She could actually speak. As Sial stood there stewing in mental shock, several other clean and nice voices rang out from somewhere and entered his ears. Europe, Area 2, cleared. Germany, Area 3, cleared. North America, Area 4, cleared. Asia, Area 5, cleared. Africa, Area 6, failed. China, Area 7, cleared. South America, Area 8, failed. Oceania, Area 9, failed. That's a bit weird, isn't it? Ainz Sangmin muttered almost inaudibly. What is? 6 of those areas are the 6 continents, right? So how come Korea, Germany, and China get a separate area designation? Hey man, what do you think? Sial shook his head. Ah, she's moving again. Are we supposed to enter first? Ainz Sangmin's guess proved to be correct. Beyond the exit of the passage was a large and empty area shaped like a high-end theater. While walking on the red carpet, Sial took a look around him. Towards the darkened front, he could sort of see a stage. Although the lights were off, there were some strange things on the walls that glistened and managed to illuminate the darkness a little bit. The ceiling was so high, he couldn't even see it properly. The maid leading in front took the group towards a row of chairs located just before the stage. The number of chairs was exactly 8. After confirming that everyone had taken a seat, the blonde maid climbed up to the stage and disappeared behind the curtains. That was the signal. Sial could hear many more footsteps coming from behind him. I guess they are from the area too. Was it Europe? Ainz Sangmin spoke as he turned his head around to look. Over 30 people were following a maid to their seats. The place this maid led them to was a location a bit behind Sial's group. There was a total of 32 chairs. The unfamiliar maid also disappeared behind the curtains as soon as she was done leading them to their seats, so that many people survived the European tutorial. As Sial wordlessly checked them out, one of them also began looking at Sial. It was a woman sitting in the middle of the front row. No, perhaps it would be more correct to call her a girl instead. She possessed curly light brown hair and a pair of eyes bright enough to softly shimmer within this darkness. The rest of her face, revealed with the aid of a white hairband holding her hair back, was very memorable as well. Sial ended up inadvertently focusing on her neck that reminded him of a beautiful orchid flower until he saw her waving her hand slightly in greeting. So, he inadvertently ended up greeting back with a slight nod as well. Meanwhile, people continued to stream inside. Soon enough, Sial got to learn that the number of survivors differed greatly from area to area. Perhaps Ainz Sangmin thought of the same thing as he was constantly muttering to himself. We have 8 people. Europe, 32. Germany, 10. North America, 11. Asia, 17. The queue of people steadily entering this large area briefly broke up. A short while afterwards, 5 men, all wearing the same type of black suits, appeared from the passage, and there were 3 people following behind them as well, all women, and for some reason their heads lowered. Huh. A group of 5 decked out in identical suits. Oh, there are 3 more. So, a total of 8 people from China, I guess? That was the end of the queue, and no one else entered afterwards, no matter how long they waited. Does that mean there are no survivors from South America and Oceania? Don't forget Africa, too. When transitioning from Area 5 to Area 7, there was a short gap there. Ainz Sangmin added his opinion while agreeing to Sial's guesses. So that means the surroundings became quiet. Sitting inside this lengthy silence, Sial inexplicably began recalling Han's words from earlier on. You possess the notes from the guide with you, yes. How about reading them and see what's written on them? I suggest that you read them while you're alone, if possible. Sial got that note while drawing medical supplies. There were 3 of them, even. But why did the guide go out of his way to mention them? They weren't even the so-called specials, either. Unable to calm his curiosity, Sial pulled his bag closer to open it. However, just as he was about to reach in, the curtains hiding the stage were silently pulled to the side. Pot. Suddenly, blinding lights bathed the stage. Not just Sial, but every survivor from the 6 continents dazedly stared at the brightly lit stage. Chapter 20. Rewards befitting one's achievements, 3. Sial saw the blonde maid who guided him in Area 1. But she wasn't the only maid. A total of 9 maids, all wearing the same outfit, stood there, their hands neatly folded and resting in front of their stomachs. A lone woman sat in the middle of them all. This woman wasn't wearing a French-made outfit like the rest, which naturally drew everyone's attention towards her. It was unknown whether the lighting was to blame, but her silky hair reaching the arms of her chair had a bit of a sanguine hue. A thick coat hung loosely from her shoulders. Her eyes were closed and her arms crossed in front of her chest, as if she was in a state of deep contemplation. A short while later, all 9 maids began clapping their hands in unison. Congratulations, Tilda, and celebrations, Tilda. When I tell everyone that you're in love with me, Tilda, they even started singing Cliff Richard's famous song. What are they doing now? Someone from the back asked, sounding somewhat flabbergasted. Other people's reactions weren't all that different either. They were all dumbfounded at this unexpected celebration featuring a singing routine. Eventually, the song came to an end. The eyes of the woman sitting in the middle half opened. She slightly jutted her chin out, and as if she was appraising high-end luxury goods in a store, her eyes slowly swept across those sitting in the audience seats. The inside of the theater remained deathly silent. The reactions of those meeting her gaze were similar to one another. Either they got nervous and lowered their heads, or sneakily averted their gazes. The sounds of saliva being swallowed could be heard here and there as well. Her heated gaze that reminded one of a predator surveying its potential prey caused subtle fear to rise up in the hearts of those meeting it. Her crossed legs slowly unfurled. And when she elegantly stood up from her chair and walked leisurely towards the front, Sial got rather surprised by how tall she was. She was tall enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with a tall man. The woman suddenly halted her steps and directed her gaze towards Sial's general direction. Or, to be more specific, towards where the survivors from Area 2 were seated. There, the girl who shared wordless greetings with Sial was raising her hand up in the air. Are you also a tutorial guide? She can still ask a question even under such an atmosphere, thought Sial. He couldn't help but be impressed, and at the same time slightly worried. Even he was feeling a certain unexplainable sense of danger from this woman. If he were to put it in words, she reminded him of a wild, untamed beast. The tall woman didn't reply, simply standing there in utter silence and staring back. While her gaze never wavered, she reached inside the thick coat and fished out a cigarette. The light from flame catching on to the end of her smoke illuminated the darkness just enough for the scar extending from her eye down to her cheek to be highlighted in all of its glory. If the girl was sensible enough to pick up on the awkward atmosphere, she would have lowered her hand already. But maybe she was either exceedingly brave or simply daring as she threw another question out instead. Or, "What should I call you? Who are you?" The tall woman's head tilted slightly towards her back. A maid standing 2 spots to the left of Sial's blonde maid stepped forward. Area 2, Odilette Delphine. Upon hearing that name, the half-closed eyes of the tall woman opened up fully, and she shifted her gaze back to the girl, Odilette Delphine. Her red lips slowly parted, and the thin blue smoke eased out. "Just call me Cynthia." The girl lowered her hand then. "What have they been talking about?" "That tall lady said that her name is Cynthia, and the person who asked the question must be named Odilette Delphine from Area 2. Shin Sang-ah grumbled softly in a low voice, and Isiala proceeded to whisper back. "Cynthia, Othello Delphine." "What kind of names are those?" "I think Cynthia is an Italian name. And, it's not Othello, but Odilette." Isiala smiled awkwardly and tried to explain. However, the synchronization will now commence. Suddenly, a sharp and grating pain assaulted the brains of everyone sitting in the audience section without warning. Sial was in the midst of concentrating on Isiala's explanations and was caught off guard. A heavy frown formed on his face as the pain attacked him relentlessly. Whimpers and moans came from pretty much everywhere as people began grasping their own heads. Thankfully, the assault didn't last for long. The synchronization has been completed. As soon as that announcement was made, the pain washed away as if it was all a lie. Now suddenly freed from the brain-melting pain, the crowd fell into a state of chaotic confusion. I guess the synchronization was delayed somewhat. Oh well, I'm sure you can all understand me now. The tall woman who introduced herself as Cynthia was looking on as if she found this whole affair quite entertaining. She spoke so fluently that even native speakers would have been impressed. At a bare minimum, it sounded like Korean to Sial's ears. Perhaps finding the stunned silence to her liking, the corners of Cynthia's mouth rose up. It sure is much more preferable to filter them out at least once, right? If they started yapping on and on like a bunch of goddamn parrots, I'd have been really pissed off by now. Her steps rang around loudly as she started walking again. As a show of respect for you all not raising a fuss regarding the synchronization, let me inform you of something important before we start. I don't like beating around the bush. Also, you should have a general idea what this place is by now, so I'll get straight to the point. Cynthia took a couple more steps forward and spoke up in a low but powerful voice. This place is the sanctuary created through the combined powers of the 7 deities, called the Neutral Zone. Sial recalled Han's words after hearing that. The butler did wish for Sial to enjoy the kiss of Lady Luck in the Neutral Zone, didn't he? And in this place, all of you shall be given the chance to prove that you are capable of surviving in the paradise. You've all received your survival points, right? Sial's points tally was 21,500. Han confidently declared that it was the highest in history. Long story short, you must increase your points to over 1,000. That is the only way to leave this neutral zone. Although we've prepared various methods to increase your points tally, we are not going to mind other ways you cook up yourselves. However, you only have 1 month to do so. A small commotion began rising up. After all, most of them present here heard that, as soon as they cleared the tutorial, they would be allowed to enter paradise. So this was contrary to what they were promised. Of course, there were few here that displayed a relaxed demeanor as well. These were the people who got to hear a more in-depth explanation beforehand, so they knew what was going on already. If you fail to gather the points in a month's time. What is the meaning of this? The loud voice of dissent came from Area 4. A man with an imposing physique and a beard stood up from his seat. However, Cynthia only spared him a cursory glance. HMPH. If you don't want to regurgitate that burrito you shoved down your throat before you got here, you'd better sit your ass back down. I really hate being asked a question in the middle of my sentence. The bearded man blinked his eyes in surprise for a few seconds before his expression crumpled in anger. The hell did you say? Watch your mouth, you spaghetti bitch. Cynthia threw her head back in a loud fit of laughter. Certainly a barbaric Mexican, ain't ya? You from the Sinaloa, right? How do you know? It's obvious. Out of those with the authority to recruit, the only one who can mass mobilize the bronze marks is found there. Cynthia's laughter abruptly came to halt, and she beckoned with her index finger. The fourth maid from the left stepped forward and handed over a piece of paper to her. Let's see. I'm getting curious here if your results match that mouth of yours. Cynthia took a look at the paper, and a mocking smile formed on her lips. 0 points? What? Is this real? The maid quietly nodded her head. You're not even a red mark, getting a 0 as a bronze. Cynthia threw away the paper and coldly looked at the burly Mexican. I can't bother to talk to you again. Sit back down, burrito. You... Sit. Otherwise, I'm going to make the ones who invited you regret it. The abrupt change in the tone of her voice was so eerie and terrifying that it roused goosebumps on all who heard it. The Mexican man shrunk back in an instant and collapsed back down to his seats unsteadily. I think you're all misunderstanding something here. Cynthia continued to smoke without saying anything for a while before sweeping her gaze across the audience seats with eyes belonging to a wild beast. The official title of this land is Lost Paradise. Got that? She emphasized the last part of her words, specifically the name. Did you all think that, because it's called Paradise, that you'd get to ride in roller coasters and have a jolly good time? You all better wake up. If I were to compare this place to Earth, then the land you're about to step into is a battlefield full of gunshots and explosions happening every single day. This is a war zone, where you will be permitted to survive only after your enemies are all dead. She flicked the butt of the cigarette away and crossed her arms again. Just because you managed to somehow escape from a weakling monster, you think you got the right to bark at me. Don't you get the meaning behind the tutorial? Don't get cocky. You better not fool yourselves into thinking that things you'll encounter in Lost Paradise are around the same level as what you experienced in the tutorial. The reality of the situation must have sunk in as the small commotion died down almost immediately. That's right. If you understood, then keep your mouths shut, you useless bunch of woodpeckers. It was at this moment that a giggle escaped out from Sial's lips. He was seriously concentrating on Cynthia's words, but couldn't help himself when she blared out the woodpecker bit. He realized he made a mistake right away and tried to cover his mouth, but he had already become the center of attention by then. A strange glimmer flickered in Cynthia's eyes. Oh, I see. Indeed, you may find all of this rather adorable. But you should try to understand, too. No matter how careful the selection process was, there will always be some dirt that manages to escape the filtering. Sial was expecting to hear an earful, but upon hearing her voice that seemingly asked for his understanding, he could only feel confusion. Well, this place will be the end of that anyways. Cynthia shifted her gaze back to Area 4 direction and giggled. You are going to go through a lot of hardship, that's for sure. To get to 1,000 points from 0, now that isn't going to be a walk in the park. Hearing this, several people began to flinch noticeably. This is the consequence of your own actions. Who told you to get a free pass through the tutorial? Even Siala's complexion wasn't so good. Her points only amounted to 46. Now that we're here, we might as well get the awards ceremony done and dusted too. If there's someone deserving of punishment, then there should be others deserving of rewards. Cynthia let off a lengthy groan and reached into her inner coat pocket. From now, if I call out your name, stand up. Area 5, Tong Chai. A thin man wearing a white turban stood up. You already meet the requirements. If you want, you can enter paradise right away. I choose to remain. Then take this. Cynthia threw something at Tong Chai. He easily snatched it off the air and asked her, full of curiosity. What's this? What, a member of the assassination squad is asking for info. An unreadable smile formed on Tong Chai's face as he sat back down. If you're really curious, then ask your maid standing behind me later. Area 2, Salvator Leoda. This time, a man with a buzz cut stood up. Cynthia didn't bother to say anything and simply threw something at his way. The unexpectedly youthful man caught it, bowed slightly, and sat back down on his seat. Area 7, How Win. One of the identically kitted Chinese men, a man with good physique and looking somewhere around in the mid-30s, stood up. Seeing how you carry yourself, I can easily guess where you're from, so will you be staying? That is a foolish question. I will be staying, of course. The man named Hao Win smiled refreshingly. Okay, and then? Area 2, Odilette Delphine. I'm also staying. The girl answered right away. She quickly caught the thrown item that drew a long arc in the air. She checked it and then promptly raised her hand up high again. Excuse me for a second. I think you gave me the wrong one because it says no point 2 on the plate. Nope. I know full well that you earned 7,500 points. Shocked and impressed gasps came from the various parts of the audience. Most of the crowd here stared at the girl with the white hairband with disbelieving eyes. If I deduct the 1,000 survival points you got as your starting bonus, then your original points tally is 6,500. And your silver mark got you a mark of survival with the 5 times multiplier. So you earned 1,300 points during the tutorial. Am I right? Why, yes, you are right. How regretful. That amount would have been enough to get you to the top of the rankings. But this time, it's only enough for the second place. The girl's jaw dropped. Quite likely, she hadn't thought of the possibility that someone else could have surpassed her in the points tally. Wait a minute. Didn't I also receive some survival points as the starting bonus? Now that he thought about it, Cial did receive 5,000 points in the assembly hall as starting bonus. It seemed that the points he got back then were not subjected to the multiplier effect of the mark of the survival. In any case, that meant the actual total of Cial's survival points was not 21,500, but 26,500 instead. Area 1, I'm staying. Cial quickly got up from his seat. The back of his head was getting really itchy right about now. How many points did that guy receive then? You shouldn't even ask. Just tallying up the original points alone, it's 2150. It's higher than yours by 850. Wow, doesn't she know any shame? Cial inwardly complained while catching the incoming object. It was a key with a golden numeral 1 engraved on the attached plate. You know, I find it really amazing. Cinzia unexpectedly displayed a certain amount of admiration. It's already impressive that your tiny country earned the right to recruit people independently, but now a second irregular has appeared. Thanks to her declaration, the eyes that fell on Odilette was now firmly fixed on Cial. He really wanted to decline all this attention. Finally, Cinzia gave out a signal, prompting the maids to hurriedly descend from the stage and move to either side of the audience area. What are you all doing? Stand up. Cial was about halfway down to his chair, but he had to stand back up again. The countdown to the month's deadline has begun already. What, you want me to spoon-feed you everything you need before you'll start moving your asses? Hearing this, Cial quickly picked up his bag. The blonde maid was waiting for him in a different doorway than the one he used to enter the theater. It was as if she was telling him to use this one now. Everyone formed the same sort of surprised expressions once they exited from the theater and took in the sights unfolding before their eyes. The so-called neutral zone reminded one of a supermassive department store with its spectacular interior. The ground floor was shaped in a huge circle, and wherever they looked, they could find lounges and shops as well as other facilities. And none here could even start figuring out just how many floors, interconnected with spiraling staircases, there were above their heads. They couldn't exit from the neutral zone yet, but it wasn't hard to imagine how this place might have looked from the outside like the legendary Tower of Babel, a tall and round tower. Cial found an empty chair inside one of the ground floor's lounges and settled down to survey the area around him. The most eye-catching object within this lobby was a giant notice board set up next to a fountain in the middle of the floor. On this board, there were countless pieces of paper that resembled paper talismans stuck to it, and a healthy crowd of people had gathered in front. Cial decided to go and check out that later, once things had calmed down a little bit. So he sat here and organized his thoughts. He was initially thinking of leaving the neutral zone right away. Since he already possessed the qualifications, he believed that there was no real need to waste his time here. However, the other 4 people who had amassed over 1,000 points all chose to remain. They didn't even show a hint of hesitation either. And also, didn't that man How Win say it out loud, too? He said that was a foolish question. Okay, then. What did I dream about this place? He couldn't remember anything about this place at all. There must be a reason why all four of them said they'd rather remain here. In times like this, Sial couldn't help but grow resentful of Kim Hannah. Sial remained sitting there while rubbing his face, unsure of what to do next. He felt someone approaching him and raised his head. "How do you do?" The woman greeting him with dignified elegance as soon as their eyes met was decked out in a rather familiar attire. Seeing her neatly tied hair, as well as the pair of spectacles sitting on her nose, Sial easily recognized her. She was the second maid standing to the left on the stage. "She's from Area 2, isn't she? Hi, is there anything I can help you with? I'm called Agnes. If it's okay with you, I'd like the honor of guiding you around this facility." Now, that was a wonderful thing to hear, but it also raised a question in Sial's head. "I thought we were supposed to find the necessary info by ourselves." Indeed, that is the case. However, we are tasked with providing basic information, and also providing more information on our own volition isn't against the rules. Sial figured that this nice treatment had something to do with his gold mark. He nodded his head in acceptance. Being guided around instead of stumbling around by himself certainly saved him a lot of time. "Thank you for your help. I'll be in your care then." "Ah, in that case." Just as Agnes's complexions brightened, she began glancing behind Sial with a stiffened face. He looked behind and found the blonde maid from the tutorial standing there. Not only that, there was a refreshing smile on her face, too. Agnes did her best to reciprocate a smile on her own. "Maria, of course, I know that Area 1 isn't my jurisdiction, but the tutorial has ended already. Isn't it fine to yield this little thing to me this time?" The blonde maid, Maria, continued to smile radiantly. Meanwhile, she began raising her middle finger. Agnes's expression hardened instantly. "What's the meaning of that gesture? Excuse me, Tilda. Don't fuck around, please. You're still as coarse as ever, I see." Agnes let off a soft but resolute harumph before silently bowing to Sial and leaving without saying anything else. "Still with that disgusting habit of trying to wag your tail everywhere, you Sicilian bitch." Sial couldn't help but doubt his own hearing. He had already confirmed that the blonde maid could speak just fine, but to see such hardcore swearing jumping out of that adorable and radiant face of hers was just... "Well then, allow me to guide you. You are pretty good, with talking, I mean." "Ah, that. I am currently practicing the vow of silence, you know." "The vow of silence?" "Yes, I'm trying to fix this bad habit of mine. You see, my words tend to not get filtered by my brain and just jump out of my mouth first." Maria was implying that she talked without thinking. Somehow, Sial could see that. "Well, I'll be in your care then." When Sial stood up from his seat, Maria began tugging at the corners of his clothes. Then she pointed towards the inside of the lounge area. The facilities there resembled a cafe. "Before we get started, would you like to buy me something to drink from there first?" Sial turned around to call for Agnes. Maria jumped up and down in alarm. Wait. Okay, fine, but what's wrong with buying me something to drink?" "But why should I?" "Scrooge. You have a lot of survival points, don't you?" Sial blinked his eyes a couple of times. While she was begging him to buy her something, she mentioned the survival points. "Why? Does that mean you have to use survival points to use the facilities in this place?" "Yes. Within the neutral zone, survival points act as the sole currency. In order to eat, sleep, and buy things to wear, you need survival points for all of those." Sial furrowed his brows. Not just needing to amass lots of points, but also needing to spend them now that would spike the difficulty upwards rather steeply. "How do you gather more survival points?" Rather than a verbal answer, Maria pointed at the notice board instead. There was still a healthy crowd of people in front of it. "By taking on the missions placed on that notice board and clearing them, you'll be eligible to receive points as rewards. That's the normal way of getting the points." "The normal way, huh?" "The survival points can be loaned out or transferred to others, too." A bitter smile formed on Sial's face. By connecting what Maria said to Cynthia's words of "we are not going to mind other ways you cook up yourselves," Sial could make a pretty good guess here. Most would go about solving their problems by getting a loan or, more likely, resorting to robbery. Since I told you, you'll buy me something, right? I refuse. But why? I'll have to conserve my points. It's not like they fall down from the sky or something. But why so stingy? You know you will get free accommodation and food, so how come? Sial tilted his head, wondering what she was on about now. Maria sneakily looked around her and began whispering to his ear. Even here, you'll see lots of discrimination, you know. The contracted has to pay the full amount when using the facilities found here, but that's not the case for the invited, right? The bronze marks get 10% discount, the silver marks gets 20% discount, and if that's the case, as a gold mark, you get 30% off on every available facility here. On top of that, you are the highest-ranked survivor. So not only are you given an exclusive residence, but you also receive 70% discount when utilizing the services of certain shops and restaurants. When Sial stared at her in disbelief, Maria nodded her head quite animatedly. And as it turned out, she was telling the truth. The cheapest drink available cost 1 survival point. Maria chose a drink that cost 10 points, but as soon as he showed off his gold mark and the plate attached to his key, he didn't even have to pay a single point. You really made a wise decision to stay behind, you know. As they were headed off to his residence located on the upper floors, Maria suddenly told him thus. Her expression was one full of happiness as she sucked in the drink through the straw. You see, it's really difficult to return to the neutral zone once you leave. Since you already have secured your right to leave, you might as well suck out every little benefit you can from here, right? And what benefits are there that can make my stay worthwhile? The VIP store. Maria answered him right away and pulled out a pamphlet from seemingly out of nowhere. This here is the list of some of the things you can buy from the VIP store. Sial's eyes grew wider and wider in surprise as he scanned contents of the list.